7:30 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the sunshine notice of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment. Such notice has been placed on the official bulletin board at the municipal complex and by transmitting a copy of the notice to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, The Times, Tonian, and by filing a copy with Clerk of Princeton on January 11, 2021, and has been posted to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19 coronavirus, notice that during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and The Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on the 24th day of April, 2020. Such notices have been placed on the official bulletin board at the municipal complex and on the Princeton website and are to be maintained throughout the year, and by transmitting a copy of same to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, The Times, Trentonian, Comcast Media, and by filing a copy thereof with the Clerk of Princeton. Notices have been placed on all window doors of the municipal complex. Okay, so the first order of business is the roll call.
Lisa Bradley is the court reporter. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Ms. Colson,
Here.
Mr. Savage, Mr. Floyd,
Here.
Driver, Mr. Tenenbaum,
Here.
Silvavanis,
Here.
Ms. Chen,
Here.
Mr. Stein.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one application this evening, 20 Nassau Street, block 19.02, lots 17 through 20 in the CVCP zone. This is case number Z 2020-828. Do we have any participants yet? Any members of the public here?
Yeah, there's quite a few, Stephen. Jack Morrison has his hand up in the, I don't know if Eve, you can.
Well, here's what I'd like.
Okay.
When we finish.
Wait, let me just say something. It seems like everyone's in participants. There aren't two groups tonight, and
There should be.
I know. At least it's not showing up that way on my screen.
Yeah, mine too.
Analysts and attendees, I see both.
Yeah, I see both. There's two hands raised in attendees.
I want to do my job, but I don't see that on my screen.
That's
And I
right.
did last time.
Yeah.
Claudia, do you?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, we do.
Well, Claudia brought Jack over.
Somebody 15 Bank, I'm not sure who that is.
Kimberly Risk has her hand raised.
Well, when we ended the last time, Bill Gray, one of the Bank Street residents, was, we were in the public portion of the meeting and Bill Gray was questioning the applicant. And I told him that we would continue. He was almost done by his own admission. And I told him we would finish up with him before we went on to the next questioner. Is he there? Is he listed anywhere in the participants?
Yes.
He's in attendees. He needs to be pulled over.
Okay, so I think we should hear him first. And he, like he said, he is almost finished, so we'll finish his questioning and then move on to the next person. That seem reasonable to everybody?
Sure.
Okay, so if you can bring Mr. Gray in, that would be good.
Hello.
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 Hi. Can you see me? Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Do I have to swear in?
You know, Mr. Gray, we placed you under oath at the last meeting, so we will consider you under oath.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Gray, when we finished up the last time, at the end of the last hearing, you were almost done.
Mhm.
And so I'd like to allow you to finish so we can go on to other questions and
Sure.
presentations.
Okay. I do need a screen share, please. Are you there?
Claudia, Eve,
I don't-
Mr. Gray wants to share a screen. Is that doable?
I don't have the ability to do that. I don't know why. I was the co-host, but I don't see that ability here.
Claudia?
So it needs to be, unfortunately, I wish I could do it, but I think Claudia needs to.
But where is Mr. Gray? I can't find him.
He's on the screen.
He's on the screen.
Panelist.
Mr. Gray, can you speak? I can't find you.
I can see everyone. I can see myself. Can you hear me?
You should be able to share the screen.
Okay. Good. I see that. Okay. Okay. Does that say begin January 20th, 2021?
I can't see. I have a gray screen here.
Hang on one second, okay? Please. I think my Wi-Fi might not be up for it. Do you see anything?
No, sir.
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to ask that maybe other people go before me until I'm able to solve this problem.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Claudia, Eve, well, first of all, you're still sharing your screen, so if you could
Oh, yeah, sorry.
get rid of that. And Claudia, there was a brief flash of a notice on there when you went to close your screen, but we'll deal with that later, I guess.
Okay.
All right, if whomever is next on the list, if they can be let in.
I'm wondering, may I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay. I know Tony has a pretty long presentation. And I'm wondering if there are other neighbors on the Zoom tonight that might take up less time and if maybe they can be allowed to go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's let's take the next person who's on the list and
Okay.
we will get back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where did it go?
Looks like Anne Marie and Diego Salmon have their hand raised.
Now, they already, didn't they speak at the last, didn't they question during the last meeting?
Yes.
I see
like
two
to-
others, Lauren Gelman and also Mimi. Lauren, do you want to go ahead? Oh, and I see somebody else. I'm sorry. I guess we'll get to everybody as we can.
And one, let me add one thing. I don't mind the last presenter, Mr. Diego, from speaking again, but I'd like to get at least everybody in on the first time before we hear. And I know he may have some questions that may have been unanswered. So I do want to hear that, but I'd rather get everybody to have a first time to present before we hear from people again.
Lauren, you want to go ahead? You need to unmute and be sworn in.
Lauren, would you first give us your address, please, for the record?
My home address,
Yes, please.
67 North Greenwood Avenue in Hopewell.
All right. And if you would raise your right hand, do you swear any testimony you give this evening will be truthful?
Yes.
All right.
I own Milk and Cookies, which is presently at 20 Nassau Street. And I just really wanted to say nice things about the folks at the hotel. I've been talking to them and working with them for about a year now. We used to be around the corner on Chambers Street, and we recently moved to Nassau Street. And they've just been lovely to work with. They really seem to have the town's best interests at heart. They've certainly been helpful, to me and my shop. And so they've just been great to work with. And I think the plans are terrific. And just overall, I think that having a hotel of this type and this size in town would be terrific for the town. I mean, we're all trying to get, lots of people to come into town and shop and walk around and keep it the destination that it's been. And I think that extending that beyond Palmer Square and beyond Witherspoon Street is really important and really vital. And already our little stretch of Nassau Street is becoming, a bit of a destination with the tables outside and everything. On weekends, people really come there. And I think that if that extends down Chambers Street and with the people in the hotel, and if it brings people across from campus, I just think it's wonderful. So I think it's a good plan, and I just wanted to give my support to it.
Thank you.
Um, 15 Bank Street. I don't know your
Yes.
name.
Name is Homer Wang.
Mr. Wang, do you swear or affirm any testimony you give this evening will be truthful?
Right now, I only want to ask a question and I will make my statement later.
All right.
What's your address, sir?
15 Bank.
Thank you.
Do I need to swear in?
No, you're fine. We,
All right.
we did swear you in. You're fine.
Okay. So I'm a relative newcomer to the street. And if not, the neighbor prompted me, I totally unaware of there is a hotel to be built or this proposal. So I may not get the full picture of what is going on, but based upon the presentation I heard, I have a few questions. First, is that now, right now, the fence separating the 20 Nassau Street property and the 15 Bank is a 6-foot tall chain link fence. There is a tree right across straddle around the fence. Actually, the fence has to build with a big hole on it to allow the trunk of the tree that protrudes into 15 bank. On one of the plan, I saw that tree is marked removal or to be removed. And in the presentation, I heard that the wall proposed to be built will be set back a few feet. So under this scenario, will the tree be removed?
I don't know if you asked anybody in particular, but just to clarify, the tree's gonna be removed regardless of the scenario because of its health. The tree was evaluated, it was in poor condition, there's, it's hollowed out in certain areas. And the one that you're talking about right on the fence line is gonna be removed because it's in poor health.
Well, to my observation, the tree is quite healthy because the tree, if I don't know if everybody aware, the majority of the canopy and henceforth the root system is outside of 20 Nassau Street, is in the neighbor's yard, and the 15 bank shears a big chunk of the canopy. And when I bought the house, I have to trim a lot of the limbs which is touching the 15 bank, but the canopy provides a ample shade for the backyard of 15. And I don't see there's any unhealthy, at least on the limbs. Maybe there's some rot on the trunk. I don't know. But is that the common practice that in Princeton, that when a tree is settling on the borderline, one side can decide to get it removed unilaterally? Now, I know, Steve, we share a border and you remove the tree, you call me first, and I very appreciate that.
Mimi, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'm happy to. Hi, well, do I need to be sworn in too?
Well,
No,
we
hold on.
need
My
your
question's not finished yet. I only asked the one question. I have a multiple questions.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought you were done.
I'll mute. I apologize.
It was my fault. I thought I didn't catch that.
Well, I expected that get answered. That's not the rhetorical question. That is a real question. Every question I ask right now, I want to get answers.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's John McDonough, the project landscape architect. To answer the interested party's question, that tree is not part of the landscape plan that's proposed here. The tree is compromised by the growth intertwined with the fence as it presently is. It's certainly not an optimal or an optimum growing medium for any type of a plant. When we did our site visit, we did observe trunk damage. So the long-term viability of that tree is certainly compromised by the interference of the fence that's there now. It's not recommended for preservation. As I understand the law, the property owner has a right to control the portion of any type of vegetation on its property. If a branch or a trunk overhangs one's property, they have the right to remove that. That's part of the plan here.
All right. Just for the record, so you see that the tree is recommended to be removed by whom? And is the tree absolutely not salvageable?
The long-term health of that tree is compromised by where
What
it
the
is.
long term for how long? Our lifetime or beyond?
Not more than a few years.
And that is by the opinion of whom?
I am the project landscape architect. That's what I've observed.
Okay, so that, but just for the record, that are you paid by the project management?
I am a professional that has been commissioned by the applicant, yes.
But you're under their payroll?
I am part of the applicant team, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, I don't know if it's you or someone else that states that the shade created by the proposed building that blocks the sunlight to the buildings is insignificant.
Yeah, again,
that you?
I'll jump in here. I'm John McDonough, the project planner. That's part of the negative criteria. It's a consideration of the negative criteria as part of the variance application. And you have evidence on the record now to show that the delta or the degree of change of shadow effects on neighboring properties will be minimal as a result of this application.
What is it defined as minimal? When you say insignificant, can you quantify that?
Well, the record will speak for itself, but again, you saw the visuals that were provided as part of the evidence to
Well,
show that we're only talking about.
So say that I don't know other buildings, but let's say 11, 13, and 15 Bank. The east-facing rooms only have the opportunity of to get sunshine without the proposed building between 8 o'clock and 12, 4 hours, right? And now, because of the shade, we won't be able to see the sun before 9 o'clock, or even after 9 o'clock in the winter solstice, when the sun is most needed. Is that right?
Again, the study shows minimal additional shade above that which is presently there.
What is minimal? Quantify that. Now,
it's on the
for
record,
the people
sir.
that leave house to work or go to school, the only time they can get the sunlight in the weekdays is before 9 o'clock. And that sunlight is permanently disappeared if the building is to be erected. Ain't that true?
The answer to your question is the applicant has prepared a shadow study to show the delta between the shadow
Yeah,
effects
we
now.
saw that on that shadow study, and it's before 9 o'clock. It's all blocked.
And my planning conclusion, based on the evidence that has been provided, is that the delta, the change as a result of this building, which, by the way, the back of the building, from a height standpoint, is in conformance with the zone plan. The applicant is not seeking a height variance. So to an extent, the height that's the mass of that building in the back is contemplated in the zone scheme. So again, in terms of the actual degree of departure from what is and what's contemplated, it is not a substantial difference. And the operative word is substantial.
Well, the substantial, define, quantify that substantial. What is the substantial?
Again, I'm basing it upon the evidence that has been provided in the record to show that the degree of departure is not significant.
Well, insignificant, that is a vague word. Can you quantify that? By how
So
many
I'm not-
percent?
I'm not going to go back and forth with you as far as what constitutes substantial. I'll leave that to the discretion of the board. You've got factual evidence on the record that supports my conclusion that it is not substantial.
All right. Okay. So I just wanted to raise to the awareness of the board members that for the people who lives in there, especially during the winter, when the sun is most needed, and for people maybe have the seasonal depressions, that the early morning sun being blocked permanently is going to have a huge amount of significance to the people living in there, especially if they leave work at 9 o'clock. They won't be able to see the sun during the weekdays before they leave the house. Now, to the person who did the sound, I don't know, is that the simulation or measurement? I have more questions. So the first, what was that the noise study, is that the data you show is a simulation or a measurement?
Yeah, hi, my name's Ryan. I was the noise expert that testified that. The data presented was both. So there was a chart that reflected the noise levels measured over a 24-hour period at the facade of the existing Chambers Street building facing Bank Street. So it was near the back of, I believe, 11 Bank in the driveway. The remainder of the slides that were kind of color maps indicating the noise level predicted, those were predictions because they were based on an analysis of different constructions with the proposed development. So they were for the new construction when it's built.
So when it's built, that including the tall building that may bring in the additional acoustic effects?
Yes, there were several design cases considered with how the rear wall was constructed. One was with a 6-foot fence or wall. Another was with it enclosed, and the third was with the existing facade to remain. So those each resulted in different levels of noise transmission out into the community. So the least level of noise impact was when the auto court was essentially fully enclosed.
But my question is, the one you mentioned seems to be the sound barrier, the wall to be built, the different height of the wall. But how about the building itself in the back? Is that factored in?
So the different wall heights were used to calculate the noise attenuation. I'm not sure I understand the question. The building itself, the new proposed building?
Yeah, newly proposed building in the back will acting as an echoing chamber and has an acoustic effect, more like a auditorium.
Yeah, so I guess I think you're getting at the fact that noise can reflect off of different building surfaces. So yes, that was considered in the projections
As well. Okay, so
yes.
When you do the projection, under what kind of a parameter are you using? Do you including the wind, the direction of the wind speed, the humidity of the air, and the pressure of the air? Are they varied under different conditions?
No, I didn't. So you could potentially, so those all have minor impacts on the sound. When I say minor, especially in the distances we're looking at, maybe a decibel, one direction or the other. And I didn't do all of those iterations that you're referring to. So if you project the noise level and we calculate a certain level at a certain distance, and then you account for wind speed, that noise level could be an addition or subtraction from that by a very small amount.
But
so those were not presented in the report because there would just be such a large quantity of different conditions. Sometimes it'd be slightly higher and slightly lower, but never a significant change.
But how about the humidity and the air pressure? They will definitely change the density of the medium that sound propagate through, and it will have. You say that the change again is minimal?
Yes, it's minimal. I don't have the numbers calculated here for you right now. The information presented was based on typical conditions.
Do you actually vary these parameters?
They can be. They were not in the calculations presented.
But did you do it?
No, I did it at a standard assumptions of temperature, humidity, and no wind speed. Those are the analysis results that were presented.
All right. So even assume that the noise level you measure is no more than the normal street noise that is produced. The occurrence, the frequency of occurrence of these kind of noise, especially in the wind hours of the day, in the middle of the night, maybe a occasional car door bang in the street will not jolt people out of sleep, but increase that by multitude, the order of a magnitude in terms of numbers, certainly will drive people crazy because they cannot get a restful night of sleep.
Yeah, I can't comment on frequency of occurrence directly. In terms of the sound analysis, I'll just weigh in with that. And I'm not sure if anyone else wants to comment on the remainder, but there were several different conditions presented in the proposed design with the auto court fully enclosed. The noise levels there were actually shown to be below ambient noise levels, I think for a lot of the noise events. So in that case, your concern would be mitigated. And then, so I just wanted to weigh in with that as well.
All right. So in terms of the noise measurements, did you consider the other than the door bands and the chirping of the car? What other noise you may measure? How about the low frequency, that is the rolling of heavy trucks in the driveway that may not through the air, but through the earth?
We did not do or present a study of ground-borne vibration transmission from trucks.
Okay.
But I believe that effect would be relatively minimal because the speed is so low in that auto court. And for the truck to create a ground-borne vibration that can then be heard, it would have to be a pretty large truck. And my understanding is that auto court cannot accommodate those. I think the traffic consultant would have to weigh in on that. But I don't think they could actually get back there.
The speed may be slow, but the acceleration is constant because of the circular design. The vehicle has to change direction constantly, therefore insert the force into the ground constantly. All right. Now I have the question for all the people who voice their support for the project. Today we heard someone give the speech that mentioned that standing in other people's shoes. Now I have the same question here. Is that for everyone voice the support? Think as if you are the owner of 13, 11, or 15 Bank Street. Will you voice the same support? If so, is it because you're convinced that the influence, effect, or impact on your property and the people residing in there is negligible? All right, my question stops here, but I will make statement later.
Amy, I think you're
Before-
next.
Excuse me, before we go on to the next questioner, Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to supplement your testimony from the last presentation?
Yeah, but would like to have everyone go first, and then this way we could decide what we need to show. Like for example, if the board wants to see a picture of the tree, you know, I could just show them what it looks like. Hit share screen. I don't know if it works, but let me share that picture. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the tree. It shows all the damage. I mean, we can go through things like that, but I'd rather not go point by point. What I would like to do is
That's fine.
hear from everybody, and then after the public has had an opportunity to talk, to kind of just address it all at one point. Otherwise, we'll just be going back and forth.
That's fine. No problem at all. Okay. All right. Let's have the next questioner.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, could you first state your full name and address for the record?
Sure. My name's Mimi Omasinski, and I live at 98 Nassau Street. It's across from Nassau Hall and above Hamilton Jeweler. So
All right, now we'll swear you in. Do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
No problem. I just wanted to express my enthusiasm for the project. I live downtown. So, you know, for those of us who choose to live downtown, some of these issues with noise and things like that, it's kind of just part of it. What I'm excited about with this project is I've become more familiar with the other projects of this particular company, and they have high quality. I'm from Nashville, so I know I've talked to my buds in Nashville and they like these guys. They do a good job. It's high quality construction. Personally, I'm thrilled because These folks love history as much as I do. I own Princeton Tour Company, and I give those silly tours all throughout town. And I'm convinced these people are going to give a broad experience of explaining Princeton. And that's what's got me excited about this particular partner. Not only that they do great construction and they're good community partners and things like that, specifically to that corner, I think we all, I'm sure a bunch of you on the call, I've only been here 15 years, but it wasn't until Jam and Crepes got up there that that corner became the deal. And I don't know about y'all, but I was the first one to say that's a lot of crepes. I hope they make it. But boy, they're like the destination. And now we've got local Greek and milk and cookies and the barber, Tony's moving up there. This is a game changer. So when you look at things like this project, it's another reason to have people come to Princeton, stay in Princeton. But the bigger thing is this isn't just any hotel. It's one that's going to curate why we're different, why Princeton is really special. So I'm sure members of the board have gone all over their websites. They're so smart in Princeton. They look at all this stuff a lot. But if you're like me and you're just curious and a resident, maybe you don't have time to take a look at it, or you don't live downtown, so you're maybe not as motivated, please take a look at their other places and imagine the kind of experience they're going to give people to Princeton. So hope that wasn't too long. That was all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your hard work, y'all.
You're welcome.
Jack Morrison, did you want to speak next? So like me, you need to unmute. Yeah.
Perfect.
Jack,
Take care.
if you would give us your either home or business address, and then we'll swear you in.
Jack Morrison, 256 Nassau Street, Princeton.
And do you swear or affirm any testimony you give this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
I do. And thank you, Eve. I'm Jack Morrison. I've been an active member for 40 years here in the Princeton community, having several businesses, working with nonprofits, being active with nonprofits, and raising a family. Karen would know this, having been a zoning board member for 5 years, many moons ago, I too thank you for your service. I know what it is to stay up late on some of these things. I used to get home at midnight and have to get back in the fish truck to go back to the market, but always feeling like it was worthwhile that I participated. So I am currently the president of the Princeton Merchants Association. It's a broad, diverse group, and while I can't speak unanimously for the membership as the president, knowing our mission and our vision, I can commend and support the application presented for several reasons. The design is a wonderful repurpose of an existing building along Nassau Street, while thoughtfully integrating an attractive address along Chambers without burdening the neighborhoods or ruining the integrity of our streetscape. The hotel will create, as Mimi said, a wonderful reason for people to visit our community. The guests of the hotel obviously will support our local businesses and nonprofits by shopping, dining, and enjoying our theater and arts. The hotel operations will also engage our goods and service community in a very positive way. Number 3, the hotel will create jobs at all levels. That's pretty simple. We thank you for this opportunity, but Lord knows we could use some jobs, and not excluding the COVID environment. It's always good because I know that we employ a lot of the people that need jobs, and I know that this hotel will do the same. The hotel, another added benefit is the hotel will generate much needed tax revenues to support our public schools without sending one child to school without any burden. You will send, Pablo, a big check every year down to the school board, but that's a good thing because we're enriching our community and raising people up. Also, local and county government will benefit by this. I thank the applicant for their willingness, as Mimi had said, to listen to their neighbors through this process, sharing our vision and making the investment in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see anybody else who's raised their hand. There are attendees. There are a number of people in that. Oh, okay. You literally raised your hand. Kimberly Risk. And if anybody else wants to do it virtually or literally, I'll keep an eye out. But if you want to go next and unmute.
Ma'am, could we have your address and then we'll swear you in?
Yes, 954 Princeton Kingston Road in Princeton.
And do you swear or affirm any testimony you give this evening will be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I am one of the owners of Jam and Crepes. And I just want to say that I second everything that Lauren, Mimi, and Jack have said. And I want to thank them for how nicely they have expressed all of the wonderful things and the support that we believe that the Graduate Hotel will bring to our community and enrich our downtown and encourage tourism. And from Jam and Crepes, I can tell you that we have also found the Graduate Hotel Group to be very supportive and professional to work with. And we think the plans are amazing and have been very thoughtful with regard to the impact of the downtown area. And again, you know, just restoring that beautiful building is just a really exciting thing. So we second the support as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Is Tony Nelson or Carlos Rodriguez, and they had indicated they were going to make presentations. Are they somehow
I
in
see
the?
Tony's raising his hand.
Okay.
This is Anne Marie. I'd raised my hand earlier, but now I don't have the ability to raise my hand. I just wanted to summarize some of the points we'd made earlier.
Excuse me, Anne Marie, did you speak earlier?
We spoke at the last meeting, but we didn't summarize our questions.
Okay, well, we'll if you don't mind, I really would like to hear from as many first-time questioners as possible before we come back over. So is
Tony?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Mr. Nelson, if you would give us your address for the record and then we can swear you in.
Sure. I live at 13 Bank Street in Princeton, directly behind the proposed hotel.
All right, and do you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I have questions that the chairman had said from the very first day that we could ask a series of questions from the various witnesses, and I intend to do that, number one. Number two, I have prepared a whole series of exhibits, which I would like to present, not now, but in a little while. And then I would like to come back and then read you a statement, not as a owner or a resident of Bank Street, but as a professional planner. And as the chairman said, I will follow that up after everybody else has gone or on my second go around. So let me start. Let me first of all say, you know, I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing, all of you. I'm a little bit taken back by, you know, all the wonderful testimony we had of people who will benefit by the hotel being there, and not somebody who is going to really be seriously damaged by that hotel. But I also really want to, the board is really at a strategic and interesting point, to the point where it's the board who is really determining what the future of downtown Princeton is going to be. And so these decisions are really critical. Now, don't get me wrong in any part of this. We are not against the hotel. None of Bank Street are. We're just against the atrocious design and the planning. And I'd like to go through a number of questions that I think will help clarify a number of things for me, and certainly will probably help on the exhibit. But let me start out first, and this probably goes to the attorney. I was really quite surprised that there was no geotechnical testimony regarding the hotel, the demolition, the noise, the vibration. Was that someone else? Did I miss it? Or do you guys not think that that's important? I don't know. I just want to know why there was no testimony from a geotechnical person.
I can have my engineer talk about the site if you have any questions.
Okay, I'll come to that then a little bit later. So, but there is a registered geotechnical guy, because as you know, we're right next to it. You're going to do piling. You got to smash down a concrete building. There's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be a lot of vibration. So there's a bunch of questions on that. The next question that I kind of wonder about is the actual testimony itself. And this again is to you, Chris. You testified a lot for the witnesses. Is that normal?
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, I'm asking you a question directly.
I did not testify a lot.
Well, for instance, you're the one who came up and said, oh, by the way, there's a 6-inch setback. And I went, no, wait a minute. And you also testified for Mr. McDonough just a little while ago, the landscape architect, right?
I don't call that testimony. Well, all right, it is testimony, but I'm authorized.
It is testimony, and you're not the witness.
Statements of the record to clarify misstatements.
Okay, so let me start out first with David Pablo. David, Pablo, what actually is the address of the hotel?
That's a good question. So it is currently 20 Nassau, but we are planning on changing the address due to your concern and your fellow neighbors' concerns to 2 to 4 Chambers, so that when our guests and visitors are visiting the hotel, they're not looking for Nassau Street, but they're looking for a main thoroughfare in Chambers. So we are committing to that now, and that will also hopefully then be a proactive detriment to any potential through traffic that Bank Street was concerned
Yeah, well,
about.
I'll come to that a little bit later. I was really confused about it because you guys have been using 20 Nassau Street for this application. You got 20 Nassau Street on the plans, and I'm going, that's not the main entrance. There are 3 entrances to this hotel. And I was just wondering, it just seems a little bit, not only confusing, but a bit, not exactly correct that you're using the wrong address for this hotel. It really is on Chambers Street. And there are a lot of issues on Chambers Street that are not on Nassau Street. And everybody knows, and so pleased, that as it stands now, 20 Nassau Street is successful as it is now. Jam and Crepes is doing well. They're all doing well, but they're there now. It has nothing whatsoever to do with that building rehabilitated or with that proposed new hotel at all, except for the entrance. So I just want to clarify that. So you will now modify your plans to say that the entrance to this hotel is really on Chambers Street and not on Nassau Street, right?
Correct.
Okay, now, I was really quite surprised in some cases that so much time and energy, and in fact, Mr. McDonough's entire presentation was done with one image. And that's the image which is behind Josh Zindler right now. He didn't show anything else. He just showed that one image. What I was really curious about, why didn't we see any images of the back of it? I mean, the important back of it. And, I thought that Jack's testimony was kind of interesting about like kind of maintaining the streetscape. Well, you're not even considering Bank Street as part of it. And it was seldom, if ever, shown. And I will prove to you later on that the images that you do show were really incorrect. You really glossed over how people are actually going to see that street. And I think, Mimi, if you walk up and down that street, you're going to be shocked by what this hotel is going to do to the character of Bank Street. And I think you should be really concerned about that. So that's another question. Now, what I was also interested in, Pablo, was you glossed over what these hotels look like. When your testimony, I couldn't believe it. You were showing us pictures of AD. You were showing us interiors and bed layouts, bedroom layouts. You didn't show us any hotels, which I was really quite surprised at, that you didn't actually show us what the physical character of these things look like. Now, everybody testified it. I guess we could go on your website, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but I just curious as to why you didn't show us the outside of the hotels as opposed to these kind of flashy interior photographs. Could you explain that?
We didn't show it for the ZBA presentation, but that is something that we went over in our various community meetings. I know that we made a point to show you that we have historical renovation in our DNA. And we showed those pictures during our community meetings that we had.
Hey, I attend every one of these community meetings. Why didn't I see it?
I unfortunately can't answer that question, Tony. I don't know.
I was there for all of them. And you guys never emphasized the outside of the building. It was always more or less the inside. And then it was the renderings and the actual plans themselves. Now, next question for you. How many people will actually be working in this hotel, including bartenders, servers, cooks, security people, maids, valets, retail maintenance, and management personnel? How many total people are going to be working there?
I think that's a premature question at the moment, simply because we haven't even been approved yet. We are still coming up with all those plans. So whatever number I give you would not be a truthful number because the answer is I don't know yet.
Well, then if you don't know, Net, how in the hell are you able to predict the parking numbers?
Come
on, you got to
wait. He doesn't answer that. We have a traffic expert that.
Well, we'll get to him a little bit later, but I'm just saying how many total people are going to be working there? And that's just not with the rooms full. You see, there's something not right here. And what we didn't get the real numbers. So I just want to know, bartenders, servers, cooks, security people, maids, valet, retail, maintenance, and management personnel, and the hotel full. How many is that?
Excuse me, this is Steve Cohen. I think, Tony, during the discussion of parking, they did make a statement as to the number of employees that they thought they would have. Maybe you want to get that answer. Well, they talked about the number of employees and the number of cars, I believe.
Steve, I don't think they actually did, number one. And number two, I remember someone saying, in addition to that, what were the capacity of the bars and restaurants? That's not even included in here. And somebody said, I think it was Mr. Floyd who said, you got a capacity of 116 people just in the bars alone. It's just that the numbers just keep.
Okay, well, it should be something, and I do agree with you, Tony, it should be something that they, at this point, excuse me, Pablo, you guys should have an approximation of that, or, somewhere close, because you are making parking assumptions of employees. So that number should be available.
Yeah,
okay. All right. Big question that I don't know anybody here on the board knows. Is it true that you offered my wife and I $1.5 million to buy 11 and 13 Bank Street?
No. And I think, Tony, that there is I'm first and foremost, I'm under oath and I take that very seriously. It was the first meet and greet that we had at Sacred Coffee when you and I first met. You came in, and I remember this very clearly because at the moment it was the phrase du jour with President Trump, and you said quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. I remember that clearly as if it were yesterday. And you told me that you were going to start off the negotiations, and you told me, buy me out for $1.5 million. And I responded to you immediately and said, I have no authority to handle money for for Graduate Hotel or anything else, but I'll bring it back and see what happens. And so from a contractual standpoint, we did offer, or we did accept your offer of $1.5 million, which then when we did via email, you then said, try doubling it.
Right.
So this is all very clear to me. And no, I did not offer you $1.5 million, and neither did Graduate Hotels.
Well, and who was the vice president that came around and looked at the property and walked through the house?
That was someone who was potentially interested in purchasing that house. And
Great.
that gentleman decided that it was not right for him. And so, and that's it.
If you guys would have purchased the house, the two houses, what would you have done with them?
I can't speak to that because that's above my pay grade. But I think I know what you're getting to. And the answer is no, we would not have demolished the houses.
Okay. All right. But it certainly would have been a much easier task for you guys if we weren't here in the back and bugging you. Okay. The next one is for Tom O'Shea. Tom, what actually is now the proposed setback on the west elevation of the building? The attorney testified for it, but what exactly is it? Because it's not on any of the plans.
I'm sorry, I was muted and off camera.
Okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. The question is what's the...
I heard you. It's a half a foot to allow for the green screen planting.
Okay, so that's for sure, but it's not on the plans, but it's actually 6 inches.
That's correct.
Okay, got it. I just didn't know that. And I was hoping that would be, will that appear on any of the drawings?
It will on the final plans, correct.
Okay, now what I'd like to do is talk to Michael Mills next. Michael, first of all, let me say I truly respect you, your firm, and what you guys do. The restoration work that you guys have done around the country is nothing but phenomenal, in my opinion. And I think your testimony on the 20 Nassau Street building was really, really excellent. But I have a couple of questions on it. During your testimony, you mentioned, but it was really not elaborated on at all, that you would need some lead abatement. Can you explain that? It was not, you're the only person I think who's mentioned it.
Oh, it likely had to do with the windows. And the reason why the windows were going to be new windows rather than existing.
So what will the lead abatement be?
Very expensive, actually. And in a residential building, you're not sure you can really get it all by trying to remove the paint and not leave any traces of lead. This has been a big issue at Princeton University on a lot of the projects they have done, and they have a whole department full of lead abatement people who know the science.
So how will that be treated on this particular application?
The approach to the windows is to keep the enframelments and the brick mold surrounds and replace the sash with new energy efficient sash.
Oh yeah, that's not I understand that, but how will the lead issue be handled? It's right above crepes and all the rest of them. So how's that going to be handled?
According to code, whatever is required according to code.
And is that an engineering issue, or is that one of the other issues? I mean, we're just, whether it's asbestos or lead, anything that has possibly, that could impact, the air quality.
Oh, no. I see what you're getting at.
Okay.
No, actually, we're more concerned about it internal, but no, there wouldn't be any effect to the surrounding environment by lead abatement. No.
Okay, now I'd like your professional opinion on this one, and overrule me if you think that this is an inappropriate question, but I'd like your professional opinion. And again, as I had said, I really respect the work that you do, and certainly your staff does. But do you think that, that building, which was built, what, 1910 or so, interesting building, that 100 years later, we should be replicating that same architectural form?
I think that the architect for the building can answer that better, but I don't think he is replicating the form. I think he's trying to conform to the Secretary of Interior standards, which talk about both compatibility and differentiation.
No, I'm talking about the new building.
I'm talking about the new building, it being both compatible to 20 Nassau, but also differentiated from it, which is an important characteristic under the historic preservation guidelines.
So in your opinion, then it's okay then just to replicate a building configuration essentially that was done 100 years ago?
I don't think they are replicating it, but I think it's okay to refer to it. Absolutely.
No, I can understand referring to it too. That I got. But what I don't really understand is the 12/12 windows, the same mansard. It's like, really? This is 100 years later, and why in the world are in a new building in a downtown that's going to grow and evolve? Are we replicating architecture from 100 years ago? I mean,
I don't think they're replicating, and I think they're trying to break down the scale of the new building by by the way the facade is treated.
Okay, so I was just interested in your professional opinion on that. Now, a big question for much of us on Bank Street was the quote unquote mansard or the pseudo mansard, because it's not really a mansard, as you know. And Mr. Mansard, the Paris designs of mansard is very different from this one, but this is an American variation on mansard. Why is it not wrapped around the entire building?
I believe it is now, and there was some design changes made, but I think maybe Steve could speak to that, but it is wrapped around the building.
I don't think so. Everything that we've seen said it goes along Chambers Street. I'm not sure how far it wraps around the ramp, but then in the back along Bank Street, certainly not. It's just a flat metal. It's just a flat metal. The mansard's gone, and you'll see later on, we are very, 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 very concerned about that. So in your opinion, as you now believe that it should replicate or mimic or mirror the existing building in the front, would it be reasonable then to think about the mansard being wrapped completely around the building?
I think there are lines taken from the 20 Nassau that are extended throughout the new building.
Well, there are. The lines are there, but it's not a mansard. The only place that you get the mansard treatment is essentially on Chambers Street. The rest of it, be damned. You're just going to get some bad variation of a metal extension.
Well,
not the architect.
Let's have our architect confirm first.
Okay, good. Okay,
Let's have our architect confirm what is being shown on Chambers and the.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so on Chambers, we do have a splayed back mansard, which is similar to what is done on both Nassau and Chambers Street at the corner. And again, following the French tradition of the mansard, it's not returned. It's maintained as a flush continuation, as a scaled element to cap the top floor. And again, it was something that was introduced to the Bank Street community and kind of accepted as a scaling element. The reason it does not project in the back is it would be over the property line, and we would end up having to compromise some rooms over in the extension in the commercial district.
Even with the 6-inch setback?
Yeah, I mean, the projection is about a 2-foot projection, following what's been done on existing Nassau.
Could you
referencing it?
Could you set the building back 2 feet in order to accommodate so that we have a decent facade along the back of Nassau Street and not just this essentially blank wall?
No, again, the hotel is set back 10 feet from the residential district in accordance with the zoning.
Well, we'll talk about that because we don't think that that's the case either. Okay, while I've got you here, Steve, you're the next one, because it's really been very unclear to me a couple of things. One, your testimony indicated that the lower part of the building, the garage court or whatever you call it, needed 11-foot high clearance for the trucks and the vehicles coming in. Is that correct?
Correct. We're providing 11-foot up height.
11 feet. And then you needed another foot for drop ceilings and lighting or what have you. Is that correct?
Correct. There's construction. It's sprinklered as well.
Okay. And then you
And then
needed,
there's transfers to
then you
structure.
needed a 4-foot concrete reinforced beam in order to do that. Is that correct?
That's what we're anticipating to make the clear span from the hotel to the back wall.
Okay, that's, according to my math, that's 11 plus 1 plus 4. That's 16 and not 20. Where did you guys, we have never seen a section through that piece of the building.
No, again, the drive, there's a slight elevation increase off of Chambers up
I know
to
that.
the auto court.
I know that. That's not what you testified to. You testified that the height of the interior court was 11 plus 1 plus 4. That's 16 feet. Why is the back wall that you guys are proposing 20 feet high then?
No, again, it's 20 feet from our property line. Your property is 3 feet higher than ours.
I know that.
Right.
It's not what I'm asking. The section through that piece of the wall is 11 plus 1 plus 4. And then you have your next floor, right? I don't understand how you guys came up with 20 feet. Because we haven't seen any sections of that. And I don't know how you can approve this without at least understanding it, because that wall back there is the one that sits directly on the property line. That's not 10-foot setback, and we'll go into that a little bit later. I was just very confused about your testimony on that, and I haven't seen any evidence of it.
Yeah, I believe there are some sections that we've cut through there.
I'm wondering if you at some point could explain that to the board and show the board what that section might look like?
Sure.
Okay, because the height of that wall becomes really, really, really critical. Okay, you agreed on the 6 inches. Now, next question for you. I mean, I assume that you as the architect are really involved with, and you testified as to the Chambers Street edge, and we'll have exhibits on this a little bit later, but there's a very narrow sidewalk on Chambers Street. Where the Sacred Coffee is, how wide is that sidewalk? You know?
Not offhand.
Okay, what do you think it is?
Somewhere around 9 feet.
No, not even close. Mimi could probably tell you that because she's probably walked it a number of times. The question for many of us is, if that sidewalk, if the main entrance now is, as Pablo testified, is going to be on Chambers Street, if this is going to be the hotel it says it is, the sidewalk's only 3 or 4 feet wide. And you talked about little niches or what have you in it, which really don't do anything for pedestrian circulation. Did you guys actually ever consider how you might treat Chambers Street slightly different than it is now to be able to give you guys a more respectable entrance along Chambers Street?
Yeah, I disagree with the 3 to 4 foot width.
Okay, then go out and measure it.
Well, can Tom O'Shea
answer?
Tom, can you tell us? That was?
It's between, depending on where you take the measurement, Steve, it's approximately 7 up by Nassau Street. And this is the new building. At the auto court entrance, it's 5 feet.
Okay. So it tapers as it goes down.
And we have the areas where we indent, where we add, I think it's another approximately 2+ feet.
Yeah,
Okay.
the indents,
Yes,
you justified the width of the sidewalk by the indents. And I'm just talking about the fact that people are going to be coming from, the wonderful wide sidewalk on Nassau Street with all the activities that everybody loves so much, down a really narrow sidewalk right next to traffic to the main entrance to this hotel. It just seems wrong. And if you guys think that you can justify it, but I find that really, really peculiar. And particularly, I'm not sure, and I'll talk to Mr. Jacquemart in a little bit, questions to him as well. as to, what happens now that Witherspoon Street's going to go one way and they're talking about some two-way pairs, either Tulane or Chambers Street. I have no idea how that's going to begin to affect everything in here, including, the mystical parking numbers that we've got. But anyway, that's a number one. Next question. What is the precise measurement of the little triangle that you guys are setting back from my property? What is the longest distance you guys are setting that little triangle back? You are doing a little setback there. Exactly what is the dimension of that? Because I can't find it on any drawing. This is the 10-foot required setback, but you guys are doing, I don't know, what is it? 3, 4, 5, I don't know what it is. What is it?
Is that enough to replace?
Are you referencing the small triangular area where the tree
Yeah,
is?
it's a small triangle in the corner of the lot, right
So,
between.
so Brooke, do you have those dimensions?
Yeah,
It's
that little
roughly 30 square feet, right?
It is 29, about 29 square feet, and it's for a length of 19 foot 2 5/8 roughly, and by 3 feet at its longest point on the side.
Okay, so the longest that you're set, a required 10-foot setback, you guys are setting back.
Wait, you can't just say that. It's not a required setback for a fence. That area is a fence. It could be 0.
Say that again, please, Chris.
Say that again?
That area is a wall or a fence. It doesn't have a 10-foot setback. That's a building setback.
As long as it's higher than the normal fence, all right?
That's true. If it's above 6 feet, it needs a set.
And it's going to be someplace between 15 and 20 feet high.
But the setback is 0 on that property line for a wall or fence.
I would say if it met the height, it's 0. I mean,
Tony, when we were walking in your backyard, you were the one who requested that it be taller. Based on the
Listen,
lights coming in.
wait a minute, I'll get to you, Josh. Don't worry about it. We're going to come around to that because I've got a lot of things to say about that. And in some cases in which you guys created a false impression of what that was going to be. And I will get to that and we'll look at that. But right now, whatever that is, the maximum setback from my property line and the gentleman who testified before at 15 is 3 feet at the most, and it tapers down to 0. From 3 feet to 6 inches, that's what we get.
Is this a question for somebody?
No, okay. Is it a question for somebody? No, I just wanted to know what it was because it's not on the drawings anyplace. No,
Correct.
no.
Just like existing condition, but it's better than existing condition because it's lower.
I don't understand what you just said, but if everybody understands it, that's fine with me. Okay, big question is, how many meetings did you actually attend with the Bank Street neighbors? Because you guys keep talking about all these meetings you had with the Bank Street neighbors. Steve, how many meetings did you attend with the Bank Street neighbors?
I think, again, Brooke, you have the final number?
I think it was a total of 12 community.
No, I'm not asking Brooke for the number. I'm asking.
No, there's a presentation we have that reviews that.
How many Steves were you there? You, the architect, were there for the meetings?
Probably 4 to 6.
Okay, I think it was less than that, but be that as it may. Okay, Mr. Jacquemart, we have lots and lots of questions for you.
George?
Okay.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, George, really interesting testimony that you gave about this. The question for me really is the actual traffic, the increase in the traffic, which I thought was a really serious detriment to the actual flow, both the stuff on Bank Street and the stuff on Chambers Street. And it was just confusing to all of us, me included, and I think the rest of the neighbors. I was really curious because you had very clear drawings and arrows and lines for how the motor court worked, but I didn't see anything that you testified to anyway, or any exhibits of the 160 or so exhibits you showed that showed any kind of traffic flow on Chambers Street or anything around the actual neighborhood. I'm just curious as to why not. We understand how the traffic court works, but what about the rest of it? We didn't see any arrows, graphics, levels of service, nothing. Why was that?
There has been traffic study that was submitted together with the parking study. In that traffic study, the first step we did, we estimated the traffic generation of the proposed hotel, and we compared it to the traffic generation of the office building that was there before, or they're still there.
Yeah, I got it.
To compare the traffic generation of those two, we concluded that on weekdays, the hotel would generate less traffic during the weekday peak hours in the morning and the evening. On Saturday, it's roughly the same. There was maybe 1 or 2 trips more than for the office building. These statistics were based on traffic generation data that we obtained from the Institute of Transportation Engineers that are widely accepted as relevant, appropriate statistics for these kind of uses. These are, in particular for this type of hotel, it's not considered a large tourist hotel. It's considered more like a business hotel, where we have data that were collected at very similar hotels across the nation, traffic data and parking data. These traffic data and parking data are then related to the number of rooms in the hotel or the square footage of the hotel to allow us to estimate the traffic generation. So that was one task that's in the traffic study that was submitted and was reviewed by the Princeton's consultant. We also looked at the traffic assignment on Chambers Street because we did want to see what would be the impact at the intersection of Chambers and Nassau. And there were level of service calculations. So you should go back to those documents and read them.
What are they? I don't think you testified to them. I mean, I probably should have gone back and read all your thing, but I just wonder, this is what you testified to. This is what the board heard. This is what the neighbors heard. What actually is the levels of service? And what I don't also understand is you did this impact before they decided to do the one-way on Witherspoon Street. What impact is that? And then the initial question that I asked Pablo was, there's even not a clear notion of how big and how many people and how many, bartenders and how many are going to actually be in this hotel. I mean,
right. Let me answer your question about level of service. It was addressed twice. It is the level of service in the future morning peak hour for traffic driving down Chambers Street and trying to turn right or left onto Nassau is level of service C without the hotel and D with the hotel. In the afternoon, it's the same impact for that particular movement. It's C without the hotel and D with the hotel.
Okay, and then but the hotel, you don't have the actual real numbers other than just the comparative numbers of general hotels across whatever the traffic manual really tells you. They're not specific to this hotel. Is that true?
Well, no, it is specific to this type of,
when they don't know how many people are going to be there.
It's specific to this type of hotel.
For what?
If you read the description, and if you go to, you probably know it, you're a professional planner, you know the Institute of Transportation Engineers publishes very large documents about traffic generation and also large documents about parking. And in there, they have, I think it's 3 or 4 different categories of a hotel. And this is the closest to what they call a business hotel in terms of the general size, in terms of the relatively minimum, for instance, meeting rooms, and it's not a full restaurant that's in there, it's just a kind of a minimal food place close to cafe type operation. So that's the type of hotel that we use to estimate the traffic and estimate the parking. Although the parking, we also use the Princeton zoning code to estimate what the parking demand would be.
I understand that, but what I'm saying that this hotel has got some very peculiar characteristics in terms of the number of people that just the hotel is going to generate, not the retail in the front and jam and crepes and all the rest of it. I just thought that the numbers were a bit generalized and really not very specific. And I was very concerned that if the level of service is D, and you now add another, I don't know, what, 400 people or 500 people at any one particular time in that hotel, is it still going to be D or is it going to?
Yes. And I disagree with your statement that it's very generalized. It is a very specific type of hotel, and the statistics they use relate to that type of hotel. And it's not, you know, if you have, I don't know if you ever have 400 people in the hotel, even if you had 400 people, they wouldn't come in all or out all at the same time.
Well, if somebody.
So
said you
these
have 100
statistics, they're real data that were collected on the ground. Excuse me?
If you
I
had
didn't hear you there.
the real, I mean, with security people and valets and all the rest of the folks who were there, and that hotel was full, this is going to be really incredible. In terms of.
No,
I just thought you would
it
get
is
some
based
specific
on
numbers.
real data that was collected at very similar hotels. And these real data, they include the trips made by the hotel guests, by the employees, by the visitors, by the merchants, whoever goes to and from a hotel. So all of those trips are included. It's based on actual data that were collected.
No, I've got that. You've said it before, so I understand that. Now, you also know that the building right next to you just got approved for a bank, a doctor's office, and a yoga studio with no parking. Yes, okay.
Well,
no parking requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, and the bank across the street got approved by this board. The bank of whatever, Princeton or whatever, also got approved with no parking. Right?
Jordan,
Yeah.
if you don't know the answer, it's okay.
I don't know the details about these. I
Well,
don't know the details
mean,
about these other projects. I know that they were
I'm not sure
approved.
how it's
I
relevant.
have not looked
Tony, what's
into the
your
details. The
question?
point is,
what's the question? The question is how much short park, you guys are short parking now. And also the really kind of interesting question that I have for you guys was, do I understand correctly that you guys have approached the Y for additional parking spaces?
it is my understanding that the Y has been approached for parking spaces only during the construction phase.
I can
park
take
the-
that, Tony.
Okay,
We, we have approached the Y in order to mitigate any further congestion in the immediate downtown area to stage our contractors. It is not parking for the hotel. It is for during construction only.
Okay, I appreciate that because it was really unclear to me, but it really appears that if this hotel is fully loaded, we're going to have a serious parking problem in the downtown, particularly on a Saturday night, which already merchants are complaining about. Now,
Tony, you can't make are you asking questions or testifying? And you're not.
I think I'm just trying to get a clarification, Chris, to some of these things.
It just seems like.
I'd like to clarify. I'd like to clarify. In your statement, you do not take into consideration the parking demand that's generated by the office building as it is now, or as it existed prior to the pandemic. That office building generated a parking demand of about 190 parking spaces without providing a single parking space. So this project comes in, takes out that parking demand, 190 spaces that are there, that were there prior to the pandemic, and builds a hotel that has a parking demand according to Princeton zoning of 178 spaces. So first, they reduced the parking demand in relation to the previous project by a small amount, from 190 to 178. Second, they provide 80 spaces on their property to address a significant portion of the parking demand according to the zoning. So that if you look at also, the zoning does not take into consideration when the parking demand occurs. This proposed hotel has its parking demand peaking at night when there's ample parking capacity in downtown Princeton. So when you look at the parking demand during the day, the proposed hotel has a demand, and this includes the retail and food establishments that are there, of 91 spaces. So very close to the 80 that are proposed. That's a substantial improvement in relation to the previous building. It's like building a parking garage of 179 spaces. So whatever the parking problems you quote today will be substantially improved in the future. with this project.
Again, I think the key there is that you're looking at that old office building from your textbooks as a kind of an office building. And the reality of that most of the people who were in there, students walk around, they're sociologists, psychologists. We don't have the real numbers for that. These are all just hypotheticals at this stage of the game. We don't have any real numbers for what that hotel, what the previous building actually generated. And we certainly don't have any numbers for what this hotel is going to generate. And I think that's got to be taken more seriously into consideration. Let me ask you.
We know from
that's my opinion on it, because I'm just really concerned with the whole parking issue. Now, here's another question. You have to get a variance for what you call stacked parking in the basement. Did you ever show the board what that parking looks like? Did you see it? I don't know. I can't remember.
There are drawings that have been submitted to the board.
Saw the drawings.
They have been submitted to the municipality. They have been reviewed by the town's consultants that show the layout. And I would question this term stacked parking. In my mind, stacked parking is parking that's vertically stacked, with mechanical devices, as you have in some of the parking garages, in New York City. I think what the zoning refers to is tandem parking, where cars park one behind the other.
Right. That's what
in this case, it's not even tandem parking. Tandem parking typically is like a household that has two cars, where they park the cars one behind the other. Right. And in this case, it's valet parking. So the cars are parked, some of them are parked behind or in front of other cars. And yes, so that's all I can say. I think
you're right on that. I agree with you. I didn't understand how it was stacked parking in the first place. And I didn't really understand in some cases that it was tandem, because it's tandem parking in other areas. When I looked at the layout of it, I was just wondering, how in the world is this thing actually going to function? You've got all the rest of the functions down, I understand, but I had no idea how to figure out how in the world that parking, and you guys, and even the stacked parking thing that you talked about, you guys get a variance because you have to have a minimum of 100. I think you guys got 80 down there or so.
Well, there was discussion when I think Mr. Floyd brought up Michael Floyd brought up an issue with the questioning how the parking was going to work between the staff and the patrons to the hotel, the guests, and how that overlap was going to work. Because I think Mr. Jacquemin, I think you testified that the staff parking would be during the day and the guest parking would be in the evening, and we sort of left it at that. I know Mr. Floyd questioned how that was all going to work and how that transition was going to be. How are the staff going to leave? But that's, if you want to speak to that now, that's fine. If you want to wait till later, till that question is asked again, that's up to you.
I think to clarify, what I can say is that it's going to be 100% valet parking, meaning all the drivers that come there, whether they're guests or employees, they will drop off the car in the interior court, and the valets will take the car down the ramp into the parking area. No visitor, no guest will be allowed down into that area. So it's like a typical valet garage as they exist in a lot of more urban environments, where that will function on a regular basis. So that's why, and I think Mr. Floyd also questioned, what's the meaning, what's the reasoning behind 100 car threshold? I don't know what it is. I don't see any reasoning between that. So it's a bit of an unusual, strange variance in my view.
Can I, excuse me 1 second, Tony, if you would allow me to do this.
Sure, of course.
Is this, the staff parking will be valet also?
I think so. That would be typically, it doesn't mean that at certain hours, maybe at night, the staff could drive a car down directly, but typically it should be all valet operation. As you mentioned, it's always going to be mixed. They will have employees during the day, there will be employees during the night, and there will be guests during the night, there will be guests during the day. the statistics that I mentioned are again based on parking data that we receive from the Institute of Transportation Engineers for these types of hotels that show how many cars are parked during various times of the day and including the night.
Oh, no, I
We
believe that that data is available. I'm not questioning your data. I believe that is available data. It's just that, you know, we're trying to sort out the whole parking situation and so again, it's staff certain times of the day and it's guests other times of the day, but there'll still be staff on site. So the parking is a concern.
George, the question that also I have, let's say you're one of the 116 folks who can be in the bar at one time. Where do they park?
Well,
I object to that. There's no
Okay.
testimony that 116 people could fit in the bar.
Well, I think there was.
No, there wasn't.
no, I think the figures that you mentioned are maximum capacities per the fire department, you know, based on the dimensions of the entrance, the exits, and so on. It doesn't mean that you're going to have that number of people at the bar all the time, every day.
Okay, let's say
It means that
40.
you can.
Let's say 40 people at the bar. Where are they going to park?
Right. Well, let's assume the number 40 people at the bar. You know, a substantial proportion of those 40 people will be guests that are already parked, that are already included in the numbers that we mentioned. Some of them may be people that come from nearby, walk over after work at 5 or 6 or 7, have a drink, maybe with a person who's staying at the hotel. That person is also parked. So when you look at the impacts of the bars, it's only a small proportion of people that will make a special trip to go and have a drink there and would then generate additional parking. And again, the bar that's on the ground floor, that's a typical bar, that's a typical kind of amenity that's provided in these types of hotels. Again, read the description of these hotels by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So those statistics are included in the parking demand and they're included in the traffic generation. The only bar that may not be included is the bar that's in the basement. That's kind of an extra bar, but it's a tiny bar. It's 1,500 square feet. So again, that's not a big generator in terms of attracting people. It's not going to bring people that, you know, will make a special trip to Princeton to go to this particular bar.
Okay. I'm not sure I completely buy all that, but be that as it may, because I really think the numbers really need to be very clearly quantified in some way, both in the total size and the total utilization of that. And I think obviously at some point, I know this may not be the specific purview of the zoning board, but clearly this whole thing is going to impact the future of downtown Princeton parking. Of that, there's no question. Let me move on to another topic, George. You had a slide 81, which you called the preferred option for the motor court. And it showed a circulation pattern with arrows and diagrams and what have you. And you said that you needed 8 or 9 cars waiting to be dropped off or picked up. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I did calculations, estimations, and it was, you know, it's basically to address the surges that, you know, we are expecting on a few days per year, where, you know, there are large events, especially on the Princeton campus, whether that's commencement day or big sports activities. So in those days, yes, we would want to see that number. There's not, you know, I can't say it's a black and white situation that we need 9 or 8, but it's definitely that kind of capacity that we would like to see to allow a convenient and safe circulation in that particular area. You know, sometimes people have to wait a little bit before the valet may bring the car or pick up the car. So that's part of providing a flexible operation that can address the surges in parking demand that we're concerned about.
And I understand you saying the capacity that, you know, that may exist at some point, but the reality of it, George, wouldn't it be that if it really got to be bad, they could back up the ramp or round the ramp that goes to the back of the building? I mean, because this
you
number,
mean the-
the number that you're coming up with, this is the nut of what the Bank Street folks are really most, and us particularly, are most concerned about. And that is why you can't set the building back a little bit farther than that. And the whole justification for where it falls on the 6 inches in back of the property line was primarily because of your testimony on needing this motor court to work with 8 or 9 cars. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
It's the 8 or 9 cars, but it's also the ability for a typical car to make a U-turn without having to do back and forth maneuvers.
Yeah, I know.
So we do want to design the courts, the interior courts, so that a typical taxi, Uber, and so on can make a convenient U-turn in that interior court. Again, that's part of our plan to minimize any impact on the adjacent streets, and especially on Bank Street.
No, I understand that.
That is important.
And I'll show you some exhibits of that when I actually do show my exhibit part of it. But what I was really interested in is I saw that one, but then I saw the taxi line, and the taxi swings way, way out. It's much, much, much bigger than the rest of it. Then my question was, is a taxi actually going to go down there, or will it drop you off at 20 Nassau Street or 15 Chambers Street? Why will a taxi go all the way down and under and drop it off when it has to pass 2 entrances before it gets to the basement parking?
Well, I can't speak for every taxi driver, but I think the idea here is to make it as attractive as possible for taxis and Ubers to do that. And again, I think there will be signage that mentions the court, the interior court, and the parking with an arrow, so that those cars are attracted and are incentivized to go in there. Because there may not be room to stop in front. People may not want to stop in the traffic lane to drop off somebody or pick up somebody. So especially if the local taxi drivers know the court area, they will use it, yes.
Well, I wish I could be more convinced of that, but with 2 other entrances, why would somebody want to go all the way around and wait when you could just be dropped off on Chamber or Street? But what was more interesting for me was the graphic, because the justification for the location of the wall and not setting the building back is all on you. It's all because that motor court has to work. If that motor court was revised in some form or another, that wall could be moved, not right on my property line, but could be moved much, much further back. And I think we have a compromise solution for you, but I would like you to consider that. But it just looked like the examples that you provided said that this thing cannot work except if the building or this wall or this building part is absolutely on the property line. And we don't.
I don't think the wall is on me. It's not correct to say that. Remember, the building itself is set back. The wall is more on you because the wall has been put there to protect you from the interior court.
No, you're wrong on that. It may be part of 13.
Let the architect.
Well, it's maybe part of 13, but it sure to hell is not 11. And I also own 11.
Well,
but the building the building itself is set back. Sorry.
Well, the building isn't set back.
In our first hearing, when the architect testified, I asked a question about the setback, the 10-foot setback.
Right.
And I believe the architect, correct me if I'm wrong, but the architect said that given the configuration of the lobby, what he was trying to achieve in that, it was impractical to move the building forward towards Chambers Street or move the courtyard. I mentioned that looking at the upper floors, some reconfiguration of the elevator, the service elevator and the stair would allow that to move back in. Yes, it would require a reconfiguration of the lobby. And we left it at that point. And so that's something that we might revisit later, because I felt at the time I didn't get an adequate answer to that because of time, and we were just in the early stages of the presentation. So we're going to revisit that. I mean, I'm going to bring that question up again.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, you'll see that in some of the exhibits that we have. You know, for some, this is, you know, a lot of abstract questions. Later on, we'll get to some real exhibits and maybe it'll be just clearer to people, but this really helps me in terms of beginning to understand with that. Now,
Excuse me, Tony, while we're touching on that, how, again, I'm not limiting you, but how long do you think, how many, do you have a long way to go here?
I have questions. I have continued questions for Steve McDonough. I have questions for Josh. I have questions for Ryan. I have questions for Brooke.
And then you have a presentation.
And then I have the exhibits.
How long do you think that might take?
An hour.
The whole thing?
Probably.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you know, I see people going, oh my God, it's going to be another hour. But listen, I love the fact that the guys that stand in my feet. My buildings are the one that are.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to get an idea of time.
Okay,
I'm not,
no, I would
I'm
say
not
give me
limiting
another
you.
hour. Give me at least another hour.
No,
Then-
you take what time you need. That's fine.
Appreciate that. So anyway, you know, you guys have been really cooperative so far in answering these questions, and it really has been very helpful. And I hope it's helpful to the board, because we're going to be asking for a bunch of conditions on this in order for us to be satisfied. And I think we can meet all these conditions. And as I said earlier, we're not against this hotel. We just would like some serious redesign done of it. And I think it's certainly possible to do that. Now, a big question that I have, again, the number of options that you have talked about. Both the Scrab Board, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the Historic Commission suggested that the building be set back the full 10 feet. And I think you guys came up with a bunch of possible alternatives. Okay, you can leave it open. We'll move the whole building back. We can leave the existing wall. But this is really the logical compromise to the actual building itself. And I keep wondering if we could, in somehow or another, find a compromise. That's not the full 10 feet, but is someplace in between that would satisfy most of the neighbors on Bank Street, and certainly would satisfy me, and not do any major changes, in my opinion, to the hotel. But as Steve said, there may have to be some modifications for that to happen. So there's a number of conditions that we would actually like to talk about if we could. But I want to talk about something a little more general now. Again, Mr. Shakmar, what I was interested in is that all the testimony related to cars. And maybe a sentence or two, but there was really nothing about pedestrians. And you know, there's a whole movement in downtown Princeton to make it more walkable. There's whole committees on this thing now. Everybody wants to make downtown Princeton more walkable. Well, how do we do that? How do we do that when, you know, we have no overall data, and the Chambers Street thing looks terrible, and you know, and the access from Bank Street is awful. Why was there no thought about how in the world we would make downtown and the contribution of that hotel to the walkability of downtown? There was no statistics about walkability. How many people are going to come in what entrance, when and where? It was all about cars. And I guess I'm just getting a little bit tired of only hearing about cars all the time when we want to make Princeton more walkable. So why were there no movement at all, discussions about the pedestrian?
Well, I understand. And obviously, we did look at the pedestrians. We did make an estimation of the pedestrians that would be generated by the hotel that would cross Chambers near Nassau, or that may want to cross Nassau Street. And you know, we concluded that the number crossing that would want to cross Nassau is not large enough to justify to warrant an additional pedestrian crossing. So that was one element we looked at. But I understand your other concern.
Yeah, well,
yes,
not only are we concerned about that, but what's really more interesting is I double checked this idea that you couldn't have a pedestrian crossing at Nassau and Chambers, and that's not true. What DOT is concerned about is jaywalking. And in the last time that I went to the university, walked there on Friday, when I was coming back, when I walked in and I walked down to Bank Street and Cross, 4 people jaywalked at that point, and that was even before the hotel was there. I don't understand why you guys could reasonably think about building that kind of hotel and not having crosswalks across Nassau Street in the same way there are crosswalks down Nassau Street on other locations. And it just seems to me unbelievable that you guys would say, oh, no, we can't do that, or it doesn't justify it.
Can you please limit your testimony now? Just ask questions so we can get to your part where you're going to testify and make all these statements.
Okay, so the question is, did you guys seriously look at putting a crosswalk there? And did you count the pedestrian crossings at all?
We did count pedestrians crossing at Nassau and at Chambers. We did that during the pandemic, and we did extrapolate those numbers based on counts that were done pre and post or during the pandemic and pre-pandemic. So we have an estimate of the people that would cross there. I still believe that it's probably not enough to warrant a crossing and not enough for New Jersey DOT to approve a crossing. However, we did agree with the town that we would monitor these conditions after the construction of the hotel. And then once we have real data, we will then contact New Jersey DOT to request a pedestrian crossing at that location. And it's not certain that New Jersey DOT will approve it. They are very strict. They are not concerned about jaywalking as much. They have other criteria that they consider when they approve or don't approve an additional pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, like somebody getting killed across the street. You know, it just
not
seems
necessarily, no.
It just seems reasonable if there's other crosswalks, even mid-block crosswalks further down Nassau Street. That with this a hotel here,
right? And
because it is,
there's some New Jersey DOT will tell us that there are crosswalks within relatively short distances. It's all relative. I agree. That's New Jersey DOT.
Oh, I got it. I just thought from good design and traffic flow and pedestrian and being a good walkable neighbor that you guys would automatically just do this, not forcing us to force you to be able to do it. I just thought it would be good design, but obviously it's not. Next question is, where are the bicycles parked?
The bicycles for the employees will be parked in the basement. And I think the shared bicycles that the hotel operates, I have to ask the architect. I don't know exactly where they are parked.
Yeah,
in the basement or in the upper level.
It was all talked about, oh yeah, we're gonna make this bicycle friendly, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going like, where are the bicycles?
It's shown on the plan. Steve, can you specify?
Yeah, it's directly adjacent to the valet drop-off area.
It's actually notated on the plan?
Yes.
Well, you testified to that, Steve, I believe, when you spoke. You talked about the room off of the valet area.
Correct.
For bicycles. Yeah, I do.
That'll be for bicycle, not just in the basement, because I wondered how in the world would a guest want to go down to the basement, take it up the ramp, and then take it outside? Didn't understand.
Mentioned that's for the employee bicycles will be in the basement.
I got it. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Jacquemart. Mr. McDonough. The questions I have for you are twofold. One is I got a series from your professional landscape and lighting stuff. And then later on, I have a statement prepared as a professional planner against the negative and positive criteria, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So the first thing I want to ask you is, why was there no landscape plan?
There was a landscape plan.
Where?
I don't know the sheet numbers, but we provided a landscape plan as part of the original submission.
But listen, I've worked for, I have partners who are landscape architects, and we've prepared innumerable landscape plans with plant specifications, specific locations, planting numbers. I didn't see any of that.
Yes, that, I'll defer to our council, but that's part of the record. I prepared signed and sealed landscape plans that were submitted as part of the application packet.
But you didn't, it was never testified to? That's why maybe I didn't see it.
I testified to the landscaping as part of the slide packet.
No, I understand that. No, there's a couple of big questions I had, because, what are the, like, for instance, that driveway, exactly what are the specifications for it? What is the specifications for the plantings on the roof? What's the planting specifications for the terrace? What's the planting specifications for the stuff that's supposed to be planted against the wall? I didn't see any of that.
Well, as far as the green roof is concerned, that's all part of the specifications that were submitted to the board. The board professionals have reviewed it and commented on it. Part of the stipulations based on our community outreach or meeting back there in that nice, I'll say intimate space in the back by your property there. There were stipulations made of specific plantings, a palette of plantings to play up against the wall, and we've made that stipulation.
Oh, John, I fully understand that. It was a lot of verbal, and I thought all that was great and you did a good job. I just didn't see it on a plan.
The representation was what would go back there. The stipulation is that would all be provided as part of a landscape plan as a condition of approval.
So there is no landscape plan.
There is a landscape plan,
what
but
he testified to.
not specific to the plantings on the back. There's just a stipulation as to what those plantings would be.
So Tony, in Princeton, you don't revise your plans and resubmit for the staff to review again. We submitted a landscape plan. Any of the changes will be incorporated after the process in the final plan that would be reviewed as part of compliance. So
Okay,
you don't have an updated plan at this point because we don't submit an updated plan at this point.
So the landscaping plan was really not part of it was part of the package, but it
was part of the package. Any updates that occurred by our meetings or through SPRAB or through HPC will be shown as an exhibit and testified to.
All right.
And just to sort of close out that point, the rooftop plantings did specify sedums and mosses and your typical conventional.
Yeah,
green
that I
roof.
got. That I got. Well, I was really concerned about, what about the wall planting? What about the stuff on the top of the first ledge back? What about the stuff in the driveway between? What type of exactly tree would be planted? What type of hedging would be there? None of that was there. And so your lawyer is now saying, no, we don't have to do that. We'll just do this all kind of after the fact. Okay, but then it's got to be a condition of approval that a full landscape plan is prepared for this, because what I saw was not a full landscape plan, at least one that I could actually read based on the changes that would happen. Now,
I think the representation is clear enough as to what the applicant is stipulating to. A hedgerow, I keep calling it the finger, the extension there that's now 100% paved over is going to have a hedgerow to soften the view of the parking lot that's adjacent to your property or across from your property. 2 or 3 trees to create some shade in that physical space and to completely green what is now entirely pavement.
I fully understand that. I just don't know what it is. You see what I mean? I'm just saying most of the time when Carl Hintz, when we would do this, we would specify how many plants, what type, how high, when would they be planted, how would they be maintained, et cetera, and particularly when you're dealing with some specific issues on these ledges up above, which we'll get to, or the wall plantings, which weren't specified at all. But okay, be that as a room.
No, but Tony, a real quick clarification here. It was you who chose the wall plantings. We did a walkthrough with you and Francois, and you specified to us what you'd like. And we made that commitment, and I'm making that commitment publicly, that to work with you on all of that. But you have already chosen a lot of what you want to see back there.
Yeah, you'll see that coming up. Pablo, I'm just saying that this was a commitment to me in a meeting, but it's not on a plan anyplace. So theoretically, if it's not on a plan anyplace, which this board is going to approve, you could say, well, screw Nelson. We don't have to do any of that. You see what I mean? I'm just saying it's just not very specific at times, and it really, I mean, well, you'll see later on.
Good neighbors do, Tony.
What?
That's not what good neighbors do. And Graduate Hotels are a good neighbor.
I don't, well, we will see, Josh. We will definitely see. Okay, the next question that I have for you, Mr. McDonough, was you presented an image of a green roof. And the whole roof was completely green, beautiful. Sedums, the whole thing is, in reality, there's no green roof on top of that hotel. It's a planting bed, and it's only 15% of the roof. So the visual that you testified to is just not true. Now, is it a green roof or what is it?
There is a percentage of the roof that is going to be green roof, yes.
There's a percentage of the roof that will be green, but not the image that you showed that showed the whole roof being green.
Tony, I object. He never said that that was an image of the roof. He showed an example of what a green roof looks like and said that there were similar plantings. He was using.
No, he didn't say it was similar. That's really was very misleading.
It wasn't misleading.
Because right now green roofs are so popular. Everybody in Princeton wants a green roof if they can have it. And you guys said, look at this beautiful green roof that you're going to get. In reality, you look at the plan, it's only 15% of the roof and nobody actually will ever see it. But be that as it may.
He showed the plan. He showed the areas. It was all part of his testimony.
But it's only, just so everybody's clear, it's 15% of the roof and really not more. Now, the next question I have is the lighting plan. I know you specified where the lighting was, but I didn't see anything more than that. So my question is, where really is the lighting plan, the illumination levels, the ambient spill, the color temperature, the isolux lines, and any image of what this thing is going to look like at night? Although there was some saying that there would be light spill, but John, quite honestly, I have no idea what your lighting plan is. I have no idea. And
Well,
neither does anybody else.
There was a lighting plan that was submitted. The applicant is not seeking any relief. No relief has been identified in any of the professional reports in terms of the illumination levels, in terms of the light being cast onto neighboring properties. Again, this is a confined space. We're talking about under building lighting in the lower level, in the parking level. We're talking about building mounted lighting on the Nassau Street side and the Chambers Street side, not on the Bank Street side. And we're talking about lighting that would light the service court on the entranceway in. And again, those are not pole mounted lights. Those are recessed lights into the wall system that leads to the back.
But I didn't see any specifications or photographs of what they look like. And the other question for me is, with all the talent you have developing this hotel, could we see an image of what this place is going to look like at night? Question. Okay. I would really like to see that be generated if conceivably possible. Okay, Josh, for you, is the building 5 stories or 6 stories?
Tony, how are you tonight?
I'm good.
Is the building 5 stories? The building is, as it exists now, is 5 stories, and the building.
The proposed building is the building. I mean, it's been a confusion. I know.
It's not a confusion. It's not a confusion. You're a design professional. You understand the definition of a mezzanine.
Right.
Okay. In this case, there is a mezzanine within the volume of the existing building, and there will be a mezzanine within the volume of the new building. Okay. By definition, a mezzanine is not a floor. It is not a story. Okay. The building as it exists now is a 5-story structure. The building, when it's complete, will still be a 5-story structure.
And just to clarify that from a legal perspective, that's what the state code says. When you take a look at the local ordinance, there is a distinction with habitable space. If it's under 7 feet, which what we're proposing here, then it's not a story. And therefore, it's not a story.
It's a mezzanine.
Yeah. So in this sense, the building code and the Princeton code are consistent because what we're proposing is under 7 feet in height.
Okay. Josh, you did these really interesting studies of the downtown FAR, and there's been a lot of controversy about that. But, you know, then there was some confusion because then it's unclear as to how those numbers were generated, right? I mean, nobody knows what.
It's very clear how the numbers are generated.
You know exactly how those numbers were generated?
Sure, we generated them. The
Okay.
numbers are generated because we took a building on its plot, on its site, okay, and did the comparison between the plot square footage and the building area square footage, okay? That is how you determine the FAR. I mean, that's how you determine the FAR for any building. And so we did that for all the buildings in Palmer Square. And that is how we determined that.
So,
and we talked about this last time, and we even had Derek said that that's how we calculated it. Ask Derek, that's how you're supposed to calculate FAR.
well, it was a little bit unclear as to whether or not some of these bigger spaces were included or if they weren't included. And then there was the whole question
The size, the volume of a space, the volume of a space has nothing to do with FAR.
Okay.
FAR has to do with the floor area.
No, I understand
The
that.
ballroom, you can take the ballroom from Palmer Square, okay? And that ballroom, even though it's equivalent of 2 or 3 stories, okay, has the same FAR as a single floor because it's just one floor.
Okay, I understand. You know that the Palmer Square was done even before very FARs and even zoning was even.
Sure, this building was built in the 1920s. That was before FAR.
Way before that. Do you know how many of the buildings beyond Palmer Square have FARs that required variances?
I have no idea how many buildings in town have required variances. I would guess that, you know, any of the buildings since the FAR went into effect, what, 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah.
So I mean, I haven't looked in it. I haven't, you know, checked it out. But clearly, if a building has been done after the FAR requirement went into effect, they would have to go through this process.
So the question is that even those numbers don't necessarily apply as a precedent for this hotel.
Well, no, I disagree. I think that
they do.
I disagree because, you know, when you're talking about FAR as a standard, okay, and you're trying to say that, well, the downtown should be 1.5. I personally don't think the downtown should be 1.5. I think the downtown should be scaled more appropriately to the scale of what it is historically. So in that way, you're right. Maybe the downtown should be 3 or 3.5 FAR for our downtown structures, in which case this building, you know, would either not need a variance at all or be very close. Okay. In general, you know, the FAR, when you compare all like buildings, you're comparing the standard that's going on in town. And when you look at the standard, this building is not that far over the standard, and it's not even the most over. I mean, there are still buildings that have a higher FAR than this building will after it's completed.
Which one?
Well, the one that I know for sure is the Henderson building on the corner of Spring Street
and Witherspoon.
Yes, that has a FAR, I believe that's close to 5.5.
Okay. A question that I was going to ask you, Josh, and you just answered it. Given you know, the existing FAR, which is 1.5, which we all realize is really inappropriate for the downtown. I just wanted your professional recommendation of what you thought would be appropriate. And you said between 3 and 3.5, right?
Well, I mean, you go 4.2. I haven't done an analysis to say what's the best. I haven't looked at it in that way.
Oh, okay. But if this building is built, will this building have the highest floor area ratio in downtown Princeton?
No.
How much will it deviate?
I'd have to go back to pull back out those numbers that we had to verify.
Okay, because I think our general opinion is that once it's done, this will be the highest floor area ratio in downtown Princeton.
No, that's definitely not true. There are a number of others.
Okay, well, there's one that you testified to, and that's just
the one that I know for a fact is, yes.
Okay, but there's certainly, the question is that this is going to set the precedent for a very, very big building. Now I'm going to ask you a very sensitive question here because it's come up a number of times, and I just want to verify this. And this has to do with all the neighbors. And they said, is it true that you told one of the neighbors that if the Bank Street residents had quote unquote played ball and not objected, that the hotel would have paid to have the overhead wiring on Bank Street placed underground.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that this was told me a number of times, and I just want to make sure that that's true. Ryan, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yes, hi.
Okay, hi. Give me an idea of what 44 dBA sounds like. What's it? I mean, what is 44 dBA? I mean, you're in such an esoteric, expert, and I appreciate all the detailed work. But what does 44 sound like?
It's actually
Give me a
quite
parallel
quiet.
if you can.
Yeah, so conversational speech is about 65 decibels. A car idling would probably be in that range as well. 44 decibels could be a quiet fan in your room. There's very few things that get that low. In New York City, it's very rare to measure, or any urban environment, it's actually rare to measure much below 50 dBA, especially in an outdoor environment.
I got you. Okay, I just don't know what it is. I'm in no way an expert on it, but I'm just trying to listening to you talk and say, okay, if that's our normal conversation, that's the conversation we would hear at 44 dBAs. Now, I really liked the diagrams that you guys that you did, but there was a couple of questions that I had. All the diagrams showed the hotel post-construction, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, now, did you realize at that time that what is being proposed for the building wall on adjacent to our property is going up 15 feet, and then there's a grill on top of that of 5 feet? Did you know that, or did you calculate it as a solid brick wall?
I calculated it as a solid brick wall to 15 feet and assumed that we would be able to, with the louvers at the top 5, be able to get an acoustical, a louver that has acoustical benefit.
Is there such a thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, okay. Now, the next question I have is, you've been at this building, right? You know what it is. Part of it is solid concrete. It's got mushroom columns. It's going to take a lot of smashing to get this building down. So the question is, did you do any sound impacts of what it's going to be like when we do the demolition of this building?
No, that my study that I was commissioned for was specific to the noise impact of the proposed development, not the construction process.
But what's interesting is I have tenants next door, and they're already threatening to move out. And they're threatening to move out for lots of reasons, because they can't understand how you're going to build a building right on the property line with something falling on it. But more concerning than that is how in the world they're going to deal with the noise as this building gets beat up, because it's a concrete building. It's going to have to be jackhammered or what have you. Doesn't it seem reasonable that a noise level should be done for us who are going to be, impacted by this thing for, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months while they demolish this building?
Tony, what's your question?
Do you think it's reasonable that we should have a noise study for the building when it's being demolished and not just when it's totally complete?
We'll comply with the state code. There's no reason for us to do a noise study of construction. There's no law that construction is prohibited. We will comply with the state code.
We're not saying that construction is prohibited. We're just saying, and it relates, Chris, to my first question for you earlier, is that, if you're going to put sheet piling to put a basement in here, and you're going to demolish this building by jackhammering it or what have you, it's going to be a pretty noisy affair and a pretty, rocky affair in terms of vibration for a while. And there's no testimony as to that. I mean, don't you think that that's one of the negative things that's going to happen because of this building? And shouldn't it be dealt with in some form or another?
I think that the owner here is well experienced. The construction team is well experienced. They do this type of thing all the time. And we've heard testimony to that effect. And I think that at all times we'll comply with the state code. I don't know what else I can tell you.
I don't know. Ryan, what's the state code for demolition of buildings?
Well, it depends on the type of sounds, but you could talk to the.
Chris, I'm not asking you.
Oh, okay.
I can't answer that off the top of my head in terms of what the specific requirements are in for construction noise. Generally, they're different than nuisance.
I've been on a lot of construction sites, and demolishing a solid concrete building is no piece of cake. I know that. Just the ability, the jackhammering or however they're going to pound it down, and then dumping it into dump trucks and what have you. I mean, this is well over 44 dBAs, that's for sure.
Yeah, what I can say is in general, most construction codes, municipal codes relating to construction noise are more oriented towards restricting when certain operations can happen to minimize the nuisance, as opposed to specifically prohibiting the noise, because there's certain construction activities that just make noise and you can't really necessarily prohibit those activities.
Right. Well, on that question, are there specifications in terms of is this construction thing, do you know, is going to work? Is it going to work from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night on Saturday and Sunday? Or is it just going to be from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the afternoon and not working on Saturday and Sunday? Do you have any idea? Does the town, I don't even know, does the town even have any regulations as to that?
Town has regulations to that.
And what are they?
Maybe Derek can chime in.
Sure, anybody.
I believe it's 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and Saturday it's I'd have to check, but there are regulations. I'll have to comply.
It's weekdays is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Weekends, Saturdays is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. No construction on Sundays. And if you would read our memo, we have asked that those hours be changed, so it may be a condition of this approval.
Good, Jim. I appreciate that, because we're obviously concerned about you start jackhammering at 6 o'clock in the morning, or if it goes on Saturday, the only day that we have any relief whatsoever is going to be on Sunday, and it's really a big deal. And also, if my tenants move out, it's going to be a big, serious economic loss. But be that as it may. All right, that's a question. Brooke, you're the next one. I just have a couple of questions for you, and then I'll move into the exhibits if you don't mind.
Sure.
I was really interested in, you said in your testimony that there were no municipal codes for sun and light that Princeton has. Are there other municipalities that have codes for sun and light?
Yeah, I believe Steve was the one who said that, but just specifically in New York City, there are other codes where they are required for certain lighting requirements and ventilation requirements.
No, I understand that, but what about, this is not New York City. Is there anything, do any municipalities have any scale of Princeton, New Brunswick, Trenton, Perth Amboy, Hoboken, Jersey City, any of them have any responsibility for light and air?
That I don't know.
Okay. Do you think that we should have such standards? You're the lighting person, the sun person. Should we have such standards?
I created the sun shading diagrams, but I think
Excellent.
that's probably up to the municipality to determine what the code should be.
Well, actually, there is an ordinance. There is an ordinance that talks about light and air, and this project is not at variance with that ordinance.
Could I get a specific? Could I get a specifications on that? I couldn't find it, Josh. Maybe you know where it is. I couldn't find it.
I believe it's 283 or 383. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head.
Derek, do you know?
17A 383.
And what is it?
Distance between building windows, between buildings.
No, I got that. But I mean, the removal of light and air and circulation and what have you.
That would be the only code that we have that comes close to addressing that.
That's the only thing. So we really don't have anything on that.
Right.
Okay, so it will go then towards the bigger negative issues of a negative condition at some point, and we'll talk about that a little bit later than that. So if there are, the thing that what I was wondering, Brooke, is how long would it take you to do the same graphics on a building, the building in the back, that would be 1 story lower. Would that be possible to do for us to see?
I mean, of course it's possible, but that would require a lot of remodeling and, you know, a lot of work to redo the sun shading diagrams for the amount of time intervals that we've already completed today, which was well over the standard, which is usually provided.
Okay, okay. No, I got that. So the only last question was the geotechnical person, and he's not there, so, or he or she is not there. So that's the end of the questions. Now I've got the presentation, and I don't mean to continue to bore you with it, but I think it's going to be more interesting than just me asking questions, because we have spent some good amount of time preparing some of these graphics, and I think it'd be worthwhile for you guys to see it before you come to some level of conclusion. So what I need you to do, or someone is to do, is to allow me to share screen.
Tony, can I ask again, how long you think this might take?
No, this probably will take about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at the most.
All right, thank you.
Right on my timeline, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Steve.
You'll be able to share the screen.
Okay, the question is, can you see this?
Yes.
Yes, you can see it. Okay, so this was part of it was submitted, oh boy, way back when, as a response to and some of it is in response to the testimony that you saw earlier. Now, I think all of you know it. This is Bank Street as it exists, you know, a couple months ago, before the snow, and you know that this is one of the most, you know, deplorable streets in Princeton in terms of its maintenance and upkeep. And they're going to actually do some work on the street after us bugging the town now for close to 40 years. But anyway, that's what the street looks like. When it's done, it could be one of the most charming streets, certainly in downtown Princeton, and it certainly is one of the most. Is the most unique. Just for your information, estimated we paid over $300,000 last year in taxes, and over the time that I've been here, we've paid $11 million in taxes to the town of Princeton, and we still, since early Marvin Reed early, the street just continued to deteriorate over a period of time. But all of us have had to go through the Historic Commission, and sometimes justifiably so, to be able to restore these buildings. And I just restored 2 of them, and it took me a year and a half with really detailed understanding of what the Historic Commission wanted, and we followed that absolutely to the letter. Now, some of you may not know this, that when I first came to Princeton, this was a simulation that we prepared 20 years ago of what we thought the street should look like. And that 30 years ago, Francois said. And it just picked up some of those pieces of, you know, maybe doing a bump of the street so that you would slow the traffic down, using the same kind of lights that's at Princeton University, which is just wonderful piece of lighting. The electricity was underground. And of course, there were more street trees on the street itself, and you could make room for more street trees. Well, obviously this has been sitting there now for 20 years, and clearly the plan that's proposed for this is functional. We're not going to get the lighting. We're not going to get the overhead wiring. We're going to get Cobra head lighting on it. And so, you know, we have to be satisfied with what we got for our $11 million. So now we thought, okay, they're going to improve the street. And I initially owned, these are the 2 buildings I own. I lived, Francois and I live on 13, and we bought that about 40 years ago. And we recently bought 11 Bank Street from Gordon Gunn. Had I known that the hotel was there, I don't think I would have bought it. But be that as it may, we went through the historic thing. We put the copper roofs on. We put all the correct windows in. We did all the right paint jobs. We did all of the thing in order to really make this a really beautiful piece of the street. And you can see even we painted on a texture in the front of the sidewalk to be able to give it some character that we thought would be needed and necessary. We're the only one in town who don't have their garbage cans in the side yard. We really spent some time. with a landscape architect specifying the plants as to this beautiful side yard leading to our backyard. And this is our backyard. This is the little backyard that John McDonald was referring to. And we had a landscape architect come in, specify the plants for us, and say you have to move it back at least 2 feet in order for this stuff to grow. Not 6 inches, 2 feet. And you can see the steel edge against the side, the little fountain on one side, and that fence there is the fence that separates us from the hotel property. So the building fits on about half of our lot. Now we've got a big backyard. Here's what the neighbors, the building that I bought next door looks like. They've got 52 inches. They would have a 20-foot high wall, 52 inches, and they're saying, well, that's what's there now. So, you know, why are you complaining? Well, they're going to tear this building down and they're going to put in a new building. And the requirement is that they were supposed to have setback 10 feet. Now, again, I think we can come to a compromise on that. So there's what the buildings look like from the side. The only thing that we were not able to do here is put all the shutters back. I wanted to put all the shutters back. It was not a requirement, but all these houses originally had shutters. But the cost of custom building shutters was just unbelievable. But if I had my way about it, I would have put all the shutters back on the house to truly restore this as a Queen Anne, which it deserves to be. Now, this is the back of the hotel. This is what, and now the first reaction, I do a lot of visioning processes and I've shown this to a good number of people. Here's the reaction that I got. It looks like a jail. Some people said it not only looks like a jail, it could look like an Amazon recycling facility. I mean, it's just a absolutely bare black wall. And you see, there's no mansard. There was just the straight, flat, we'll just carry the same colored brick all the way around it. Now, granted, they did make some concessions by covering the motor court, but that is essentially what's being asked to be approved with all of the conditions that, that supposedly the neighbors were looking for. Now, the thing that's really interesting is that they're looking for variances. They're looking for variances from the height, from the required setback, the fence height. We think it violates reasonable design standards. It's well over the floor area ratio, but we discussed that. And we're not really going to argue about the floor area ratio. We're just going to argue about the design of the building, which I think are reasonable conditions. I think it exceeds the number of stories, and it's particularly hard when there's another story on the top of it, essentially a story, quote unquote, that actually covers the air conditioning and what have you. I firmly believe there's insufficient parking for it, and I think it's going to have a negative impact on Bank Street and Chambers. And I think, as we all have heard, it's based on outdated CBD zoning. And I think setting this precedent is somehow or another pretty dangerous. Now, we want the now here's the possibilities. The setback of a 10-foot triangle, but set the entire building back 2 feet. And you'll see this a little bit later at graphics. Remove the side rear door. I think that was talked about. Add vertical stepping to the facade and articulation to the west facade. The approximate height of the fence, you know, try to deal with that fence in the back of it, which I think we're okay with. We would approve that kind of variance depending upon the setback. But we would like to see is added limited windows to the west facade and mansard and reduce of the bulk of the building. And a lot of people will testify to this a little later, reducing the floor area ratio a slight amount, but also keeping as much sunlight as we conceivably do it. So let's start with the setbacks. Here's the required setback. It's taken from the applicant's drawings. And this is from Chambers Street looking towards Bank Street at this particular point in time. And that little dotted line there is the setback with the curve at the edge of the actual building itself. And this is the required R4 setback from the historic district. Now, the adjacent properties, all the yellow, the crosshatch yellow, are all the setbacks for all the adjacent buildings, all the adjacent new buildings, or the buildings have been rehabilitated in some form or another. And you can see it here more clearly in the white. Here's the aerial of what it looks like up above. So you're seeing where the A is on adjacent setbacks. That building, that's the existing building. Then there is the old firehouse, and then there is the Princeton buildings. Now, you can see here, this is what that setback looks like. It's set back a good amount so there's light and air between the back of the buildings, and the folks, Anne Marie and Diego, who testified, live in the house immediately adjacent to it. But that, and they propose that as possible one basic alternative, but you can see that building has clearly been stepped back and it's a new building. Now, early testimony was that, well, the parking structure on Tulane Street is right on the property line. No, it's not. You go back there, that too has been set back 10 feet. Now, it's pretty, pretty disgusting when you go back there and look what has happened in that 10 feet, of which we are very concerned. What happens if it is set back? What happens back there? And who's in control of it? And how does it remain as beautiful as my side yard? I just don't want any more junk or garbage or what have you back there. I just think the street is too precious in order to be able to have that happen. And you can see a bit of a close-up here. Now, let's look at it from the other direction. This is approximately 50 feet high. The proposed building is 65 feet high, plus a penthouse or a screening on the air conditioning units on the top of it. It's going to be 15 feet higher than that. Just imagine that right on your property line and think about what you'd think about that. Now, the recommended setback is here. Of course, it doesn't have the round corner. I apologize for that. But you can see here in purple is the required setback. Now, I would like to propose a compromise. You can see here the crosshatched triangle. I'm suggesting that you move that triangle to that location, which will not adversely affect the traffic court and will come close to a compromise between the two, of which I think the majority of people on Bank Street would fully agree on. Now, that's what that triangle would be. Now, the Scrab board had recommended something even bigger than that. Now, when you actually look at what they're proposing, this is what's being proposed. That's the little triangle on the corner. Now, the lawyer is saying, well, that's not the building. We're just setting the wall back. But in reality, the wall is right on the property line and it completely violates the setback. So what I'm suggesting is that there is a possibility here for a minimum acceptable setback. That would be 10 feet on the intersection line between 11 and 15, between 13 and 11 Bank Street, and taper it down to where the ramp goes down. And that, I'll prove to you, does not at all impact the function of the garage court. But this notion that we're only going to get this little piece of it is completely unacceptable and completely violates those particular set of rules. Now, here's the little, you can see the dotted line, and I want to show you that because I think tapering it from 10 foot back to approximately 8 or 10 feet beyond the other property line. And then what we would like is a 2 foot setback. You're already setting that building back 6 inches, set it back 2 feet. Now that's what our landscape architect said you have to have in order to grow plants. And you're going to see they're proposing to modulate that wall in the back by growing ivy and other plants against the wall, which John McDonough testified to. But it will not grow according to my landscape architects. And if we have to have a fight in court between my landscape architects and your landscape architects, what I'm suggesting is we compromise on this thing big time and we move the whole building back 2 feet with a maximum of 10 feet on that corner. And I think that would really satisfy most of it. Now, here's what it looks like in my backyard, and that's just been planted. And they really have said, you really need that or else this stuff is just not going to grow. Now, the greening of the setback starts to become a possible issue. So this was one possibility of saying, okay, if we green that, and you just heard from our neighbor next door about the tree, which, I'm not an arborist, but it's growing through the middle of the fence, but boy, that tree is just lovely in the summertime. What we're really suggesting here is that you replace the tree in the setback. Now, I don't care if the roots grow in our yard, it's going to be a concrete wall against the edge. And I think that compromise is a perfectly reasonable compromise that gets the board, it gives the board an excuse and certainly would satisfy many of us if you would actually begin to do that. And you'll see that as a simulation a little bit later. So that's that was a scrab setback. And I just think, now here is the straw dog. Here's what Mr. Jackbar proposed. He said, well, if we have to fill the setback and move it all the way out, then our traffic court's not going to work. Well, I may agree with him on that. It could mean that your bar gets a little bit smaller and you move the elevator core. That could begin to happen. But if you take our compromise, very little needs to be done to that traffic court. So here is an interesting one that just reversing it in the other direction. Now we're looking from Bank Street up, and I apologize for twisting you guys around, but that was their proposal. And you can see it was a straw dog. You know, we're going to leave the hotel it is because it won't work if we meet this. So what I'm saying, and I think it's very reasonable, is that we come to a compromise. The compromise would be this orange line. Now, that's a hell of a lot better than the blue line. And then we went through all of this stuff and said, all right, if we actually compromised and we did this kind of the same kind of a layout there, we still got a back out space of 18 feet, and we still got 12 feet in between the parking area and the wall. And we have 21 feet, which is the ramp coming down. All of that should possibly work. Now, if it doesn't work, can we move everything forward? So that we went and looked at it. So let's look at one of the upper floor plans. It's just a bloody stairway and a service core. It doesn't affect any rooms at all. Now, if you just moved it slightly, if you moved it 3 feet, that whole traffic court would work perfectly well with no problem whatsoever. And remember, these are only preliminary drawings. As they say, everything has got to be modified for a condition. And it's no reason why the Board of Adjustment could not, or the zoning board couldn't put this on as a basic condition. Now, here's a couple of interesting ones for you. And this is what we would like. You can see here at the bottom here is the 10-foot setback, and it tapers down to 2 feet until it hits the gun buildings. And then it's just bumped straight against the other buildings. That we don't have no problem with. But this then allows us to plant, allows you guys to plant and let that wall grow, as you can see the pieces here. But rather than having a continuous wall up, this still sets the building somewhat back, but steps the building so there's some modulation to the back of that wall. But that's pretty accurate in terms of what these backyards look like and would look like if the compromise went into the condition. So it is a 10-foot setback, the 15-foot high wall with the screen, and then a 3 to 5 foot step back on the top. It just gives us some light, gets us some shade, it gives some shadow. It just breaks that mass of the building down. And then, of course, that 2-foot setback along the entire base of the building. And we think that's a perfectly reasonable compromise. But looking at that proposal, even with that 65 feet high, that's me in the backyard, and that's what we're going to see. It is just a monster of a building. And even with that little articulation. Now, if they put planting along that whole top edge and it falls down as well as the planting grows up, you know, that's a compromise one could live with. But it's going to have to be a plan of some form or another. Now, the option 2 would be, okay, just do 2 feet all the way along and then set the building back. And you're going to see some other more radical proposals that we're coming up with. But you can see here, that's what that would start to look like with step backs in the opposite direction, but actually with a part of the roof step down to remove the light, the shadow. Now, this is and I'm certainly not as good as this as a lot of you guys are in terms of the character of the kind of the places that you do. But if we only did it 2 feet, and you look at this now, you're going to start to see what the impact is going to be on Bank Street. And therefore, looking at this one, we think that the 10-foot compromise is really the best solution for this thing. I mean, clearly, it would be the best solution for it. The 2 feet all the way along simply doesn't seem to be enough. And I think we could make all of those other pieces work. But you can see the planting against the side of the wall there in the 2-foot setback. And then as you kind of zoom down, and they have never gone down in any of the renderings that I can remember at the pedestrian scale, just look up from Bank Street and look at what you're going to be seeing. And that's what it's going to look like. Now, this is another question that we have. Why can't you put some windows back there? There's a real serious question on many of our parts as to why that blank wall is there. But anyway, that
require additional variances.
okay, but if it does, you got to get variances. You
They're
got
not variances. There's a specific code requirement on a percentage of glass as you move away from the property line, and you can't have any glass less than 5 feet
from another building.
From a property line.
Okay.
Not another building, from a property line.
From a property line, okay.
Yeah.
Now, next question is this one that's been raised over and over again is the question of this door. Now, we were told that the door was there because they're going to maintain it. And then other people said it was for fire escapes and what have you. And what we would really like to see, and all the neighbors would really like to see, is no door, because that existing door will be taken away and a new door will be built, but it'll be sunk further back down into the ground. And we would really like to see that door removed, because even the Princeton University buildings, the back doors are always the places where there's something happening. I mean, you know, whether it's the valet sneaking dope in and out, or God knows what it's going to be. The key factor is that what we would really like to see would be kind of a little parklet, or a park or a green space. Now, originally that belonged to 11 Bank Street. I mean, clearly they bought it from 11 Bank Street. That's what we were told. This is what we thought would be a reasonable compromise. Now, a couple of things that we had asked them to do, and you know, you intensively landscape it, but we said, what are you going to use it for? What's it there for? I offered them and said, I'll buy it from you or lease it from you, and I'll take care of it in perpetuity. You're not needed this for the hotel, and certainly without the window, without the door there, which we don't think has any function whatsoever. There's no reason why we couldn't do that. And if we did it, we could either keep it as a park or a beautiful green space that would really enhance the character, or maybe even, you know, if we owned it, we may even put one of our cars parked there, and then, you know, we would take one more parking space away for the needed parking spaces on Bank Street. Again, that was an idea. I would really like you to consider that, and that no door option, I think, is a very important one. But if the door does go in, I already have approval for a fence. And we may vary, because, you know, whether people come and go, it's still a door. And you can see on the top of that sketch, by the way, the actual green space that really needs to be specified, the green planting, however, that needs to be specified. Now, this one is one that we want you to approve for sure. We thought there was going to be a ramp up. It's not a ramp down, it's a ramp up. And you can see here, as you come off of Chambers Street, the car is going up and the yellow signifies a light, and you can start to see where the light would fall on the sketch in the back, which is the second floor of our house. And so the notion that one would have to protect that, screen it in some form or another, clearly would have to be done. And then the other last question was, this building already has all sorts of windows on it. And that was a thought, and perhaps this cannot happen. But the idea of this wall going along was a question that we were really wondering about early on. Does it need to be 20 or can it be 16? And again, there's not clear, because again, we went to the 11 and the 1 and the 4, and then we're going like, okay, where's the other 4 feet? And perhaps there's an answer to that question. But anyway, the notion of the fenestration was something that we really thought was important. And many of us thought that, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could get some windows on the back of the building? And if we can't, we can't. I can understand that. The thought here was, okay, we're going to add some little brick texture to it, and that should be good enough. And, you know, you guys just, you know, shut up and be quiet and be satisfied with what you're going to get. But anyway, that's what the building would start to look like. And then the question starts to be, and you're going to see this a little bit later, boy, it would make such a difference if the mansard was carried around and somehow or another, there could be some windows on the top of it, or somehow or another to break the scale of that really nasty black wall. Now, the floor area ratio, it's confusing in town because it doesn't include parking. And we're kind of wondering about, you know, if you actually included the parking and you included the spaces up on the second floor, whether or not the floor area ratio would go well over 4. And I think that's immaterial at this point, quite honestly. But I do believe that the floor area ratio is high. And, you know, that's the bulk that will be added to that building, including the fenestration on the top. And if you take it from this, and of course, they testified that number 2 is not there, that doesn't exist. So it's a 5-story building because the mezzanine is a mezzanine, and it's not a story. And of course, the roof on the top is not a story either, but theoretically, you're looking at in the interior 7 stories. So one of the thoughts that came up is, what happens if you step down the back of the building? That would certainly take care of a lot of the neighbors' light and air issue, and might be a really kind of a cool thing, because it would be the first real green roof in downtown Princeton, and it would step down from edge to edge. So these were some of the stuff that was done really early on, of sketches of what that might look like if you actually stepped that down and it was actually tied to some of the roofs. So there's the existing one. There's the thought about it. And then we actually looked at the room and said, okay, you're gonna eliminate 11 rooms here, and you're gonna eliminate 6 rooms here. So you're gonna eliminate 17 rooms. And for 17 rooms, you get this fantastic roof. You get this fantastic roof. And somebody said from the Historic Commission, when this was thought about, I think they were the one that actually thought about it originally, said, man, you could just, you could just charge more for the room, because each of these rooms then would have a small roof terrace, which we thought would be a really pretty cool idea itself. And again, the 2 parts of it is, one, it would lower the floor area ratio slightly. Secondly, it would create a unique thing in Princeton with a green roof. And thirdly, you could probably charge more for these rooms with a green terrace. And that's kind of what it looks like, or what we could imagine, with the tree in the back and all the pieces that everybody seems to want would be a major part, which would be a major part of it. Now, I'll finish here quickly, but the hotel, as far as we're concerned, is a minimum of 43 parking spaces short. And it's putting, I think, an undue burden on the town of Princeton in its parking configurations now and in the future. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, we wondered, where all those additional spaces go if this place, maybe this is a really successful hotel and it's not just one night a year that it's full. Maybe it's really successful. And we hope so. But the question is, and that's just not just for Bank Street, because I think they've tried to put a Band-Aid on Bank Street by giving us residential parking permits, which they haven't done yet, but they're proposing to do that. But the question is Princeton shooting itself in the foot by allowing these guys just to willy-nilly get away with not providing any parking, as opposed to, and I know there's no municipal ordinance that said you have to provide parking in lieu of, you have to provide a payment in lieu of parking. And that's something that I think has to be brought up, and I don't think the zoning board can deal with it, but Princeton is shooting itself in the foot all the time. So this was a big issue. Now, we know from our GPS that if you are coming down Nassau Street and you miss Chambers Street, which, by the way, may go one way if they follow through, however the 2-lane Chambers or however they're going to begin to do that, but if it misses, our GPS and all our GPSs, every direction, has said, turn on Bank Street, go down Bank Street, come around the block, and then go down the parking ramp. Really easy. The problem is, it's going to have to go down Bank Street. Now, all the excuses were, well, nobody's going to turn on Bank Street, or I go around the Flower Market, or we've heard it's too narrow for people to turn. People don't look at that. They look at their GPSs, and all the GPSs all say, go down Bank Street. All right. Now, the thing, that intersection is critical. And they say, well, we're going to put some landscaping there and some bump outs and some cobblestones or whatever. They're going to do it. And that's going to prevent people from coming. Come on. People are still going to go where's the shortest way to get in. And this, is the entrance to the hotel. Now, are they going to go around or are they going to go down Bank Street? Now, I thought there was a really cool recommendation by Mrs. Flower, and that is reverse the direction on Bank Street. Just reverse the direction. That takes care of the problem completely, now and forever. So you guys would never have to worry about this once and for all. And then of course you'd say, well, but you gotta go through DOP and da, 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 da. Well, come on, you're building, I don't know how many millions you're gonna spend on this hotel, but wouldn't it be worthwhile, since this hotel is gonna be here forever, to do this right? As opposed to doing it in kind of a half-assed way? And then this thing, I mean, come on. I mean, you look at the walking distance here. You say, well, it's got snow on it. Yeah, it's got snow on it. But the effective sidewalk width is 4 feet because you got those light poles. Okay, we're going to take the light poles away and we're going to take this away. And this is just a time when there was no traffic on that whatsoever. And I kept thinking, if people are going to design this kind of hotel and they love this town so much, shouldn't they really be thinking about the entrance to this place and the walkability of Chambers Street? Isn't this really going to be as important as what we see from the back of Bank Street? Now, I mean, I guess if the town approves this, you're going to approve it, but there are solutions to this problem that could really, really help the town and could seriously help the actual hotel itself, because that's the main entrance, as was testified to earlier in this meeting. Now, I think this is the pedestrian flow that's going to be coming back and forth from the university. It's going to come down Chambers Street, and it should. And it's going to come up from the other way, and that's got another whole set of issues. Let's say somebody's at the Y and wants to come up to the hotel. I mean, of course, all you've been there, and sometimes I think that the townhouses at the corner there of Chambers and Paul Robeson are not selling simply because they've got these ugly fences and what have you look like. But this is an issue, and we've already got pedestrian flow on a beautiful back walk that comes through Princeton. The last part of it isn't so great because you have to go through the parking deck, but it is there. And it is really cool as you walk the back streets of this town, and it's absolutely unique. So I'm going, listen, if I was the urban designer on this project, I would absolutely take this into consideration if I was really looking for the highest quality for this new building, including a crosswalk would be mandatory, as well as another crosswalk there. And I, quite frankly, would love to see you widen the sidewalk. But how do you do that? The way that's done is you eliminate the 5 parking spaces on the other side of the street. Now, this may be a sin of all times, but the reality of it is, if we're going to make Princeton more walkable, we have to start to eliminate some of the parallel parking. And this is just 5 parking spaces. This is what it is now, a little doodle. This is what it could be. A beautiful set of trees, beautiful set of lights, a crosswalk going across Nassau Street, beautiful view up above, and there's no reason why this just couldn't be done. Now, does it require, can the zoning board make this as a condition of approval? I don't think so, but I'm just looking at this from just the quality of saying, listen, hotel, we're interested in coming here and we would really like to help you improve the quality, not just build the biggest building that we can put on this particular site. And we're going to do this because we understand the future is going to be more walkable. Anyway, it's an interesting thought, and it seems to me it would really make a lovely walk from the university, and certainly a lovely walk down to what is going to be. Now, this is a question for most of you. It's a big question for all of us. Why would somebody do a completely blank wall against this parking lot? Why? Now, in all the buildings that I've done or been part of the building, anytime we've got a blank wall, you might say, well, it can't have a window over a parking lot, whatever that stuff is. Could we get a variance for a window over a parking lot? That's really another question. I know it can't be from a fire protection so close to another building, that much I know, but I didn't realize you couldn't have any windows on it whatsoever. But in most cases, what we're wondering about, and this is just pure, maybe it's just not very nice thinking on my part, But I thought, Gordon Gunn is going to sell that property. We know that. He's told us that. When that property gets sold, and this building is there with a 65-foot high and its floor area ratio of 4 or whatever it is, wouldn't somebody want to come in and just snap that property up? And it's got a blank wall, so you don't have to worry about it whatsoever. You could actually expand the hotel. You could extend the corridors for the hotel. Speculation on my part, but there it is. This is what the building, and it meets all the requirements. 10-foot setback, 65 feet high, same kind of pieces. And of course, it wouldn't be windows against the front. You'd have to have a garage entrance on it in some form or another. That's just speculation. But the reality is that why is that wall blank? And if that wall had windows in it, would you have to treat that wall somehow or another differently? And then of course, our concern in all of this are the conditions of approval. We think that we could compromise on that 10-foot setback and that 2 foot along the rest of the property. If you did that, none of us, I think, would have any major issues on it. We would really like to see those windows, however we configure it, somehow or another, that back facade gets modulated in some way so it just doesn't look like a prison. Thirdly, remove the door at the driveway. There's no need for it. Nobody wants it. And the whole neighborhood is scared of it. Quite honestly, if there's one thing they're scared of, it's that door. And I'm saying to them, listen, you can at least sell it to me. I'll be glad to buy it from you. Let's talk about a reasonable price. But the other one is step the building down. And this is going to be the hardest one for you guys to take. But step that building down and do a real, honest to God, green roof for the first time in downtown Princeton. I mean, it would just be remarkable, rather than trying to fill that building up, that lot up with as much stuff as you guys could jam into it with no setbacks, and just be a good neighbor. Now, in lieu of the whether it was the $1.5 million purchase, the question is, you know, could you actually use some of that money or give us a contribution to help the town maybe put historic lighting on the street? I know we can't put the lighting underground, I mean, the wiring underground. That's going to cost me $140,000 if I wanted to do that. But could you guys be a good neighbor and donate some of that stuff? Could you? I don't know, I'm just asking. You know, and then what about the dust and the demo after construction? Who cleans that stuff up? How is that done? I mean, I just spent $35,000 painting that house. Who comes in and takes all the dust away? Or are you going to put a big, I don't know. That's got to be done. Assured that if structural property damage occurs, that it's actually going to be done. There's no assurance other than words. Oh yeah, our construction company knows they're best. They're the best in the world and they take care of it. Bullshit. That's got to be a condition of approval. And then of course, don't forget the tree. We want the tree. The tree has got to go back. And of course, assure that there will be no traffic impact, assure that there's be no light spill, and assure that no noise or air pollution impacts the adjacent neighborhoods. And of course, we want you to limit construction and demolition time from 8 to 5 and not on Saturday and Sunday. Give us more than just one day free of that incessant noise. And that seems to be, all of these seem to be, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of the neighbors, the reasonable set of conditions. Now, you know, again, if all the conditions were met, and this will be, in my opinion, the largest building in Princeton, it certainly sets the precedent. And if you do not meet these conditions, and I think in some cases, I will testify as a professional planner and not just a neighbor as to how the criteria were not met, you know, we may not have any choice but to take this to court. I don't want to do that, but I know the zoning board has tremendous power in this town, and that it approves what this town is going to become. I don't think it's the planning board. I think it's you guys, because everything is going to require variances because the zoning is so obsolete. And I understand the dilemma, and we should have a new zoning ordinance without any question. So anyway, that's the presentation at this stage of the game. And I thank you all so very much for your patience, but also you get some idea about the seriousness of this concern after we've spent so much money and our heart and soul is here on Bank Street. And I just don't want it to see it destroyed. Thanks God.
Mr. Nelson, a quick question for you. I think you had filed this previously with the board. And I think at that time it was pre-marked as Exhibit 01. So I'm assuming you'd like us to mark it as Exhibit 01 for tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that's fine. You know, that's
All right.
fine.
And my understanding is you are a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey, but I'll just ask you for the record, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And I have a prepared statement testifying purely on Mr. McDonough's issues of the criteria, which I didn't go into here at all. And at some point near the end of this, I reserve the right to be able to read that into the record.
That won't be a problem.
Thanks.
So Karen, I don't know if this was actually what was submitted and posted. It doesn't
I'm
match. with-
sorry, can you speak up, Christopher? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Better, yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is what was submitted and posted on mine, unless it was replaced at one point because it didn't match with what I had downloaded as his exhibit. So I'm not sure if this would be 01 or 02 because it doesn't seem consistent to me.
Yeah, Chris, you're probably right. There was probably a few things that were added as we went through. You know, I think this was done in, maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks before the first meeting, which was in December. You know, and then, obviously more things began to happen, and there have been a whole series of neighborhood meetings. I can't tell you how many neighborhood meetings we've had that people just kept bringing up these issues. And so, Bill has some capability of graphics, but, and I apologize for the crudeness of my graphics, but the inevitability here is that I just thought it was important that you guys see it and you understand as clearly as I can make it, the concern and the conditions that we would like to see incorporated in this plan before it gets approval or it gets denied, one or the other.
So Karen, I don't know if you want to mark the one on the record or this one as 01, just to indicate.
No, I assume we'd be marking this one, the one that Mr. Nelson presented tonight.
Okay. All right.
Well, can I have a copy of that to put on the website? For the file?
As far as I'm concerned, sure. I can transfer it to a PDF and ship it to Derek. I mean, I did that before.
Tony, the point is the one that is on the website is slightly different than the one that you just
Okay,
presented.
could be.
So we should replace the one on the website.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Yeah, well, it is like when I go through the points of, conditions and things like that, they're all, they're different texts. So it's kind of hard to follow along, but I guess that's fine.
Okay, Tony, you're done?
I'm done for the time being. I think there's other people now who really who still want to talk.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't wear you all out.
It was fine. All right, let's bring in the next person. Excuse me, one thing, do any of the board members want to break right now? Or we keep going? Okay. Claudia, Eve, who's the next person?
Eve, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you, Eve.
How's that?
Yep, Okay,
Okay, the earbuds only last so long and I couldn't charge them and use them at the same time.
okay.
I don't see anybody who's raised their hand either literally or electronically, but I'm still scanning the crowd and I don't, is there anybody else who wants to speak right now?
Well, if there's no one else out there, then if Bill Gray is still there, we can continue with his questioning. Or we can start with several people who wanted to speak for the second time.
I see Bill, but he's not. His mic is off and his screen is off, so I don't know what that means.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna again. It's 10:34. The last time I did this at about this hour, I had to stop my comments, and I'm wondering if we should maybe let. I know Homer wanted to say
Oh,
something
excuse
else.
me, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, you wanted to finish, you said you had a few minutes left to go. At the first hearing, you spoke for over an hour, which is fine, but how long would it take you to finish up right now?
30 or 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes?
Well, yeah, I have questions too. And
Well, yeah.
comments.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can go to some of the other questions and then come back. There's a good possibility we're not going to finish this evening, obviously. So I would, let's take several of the other questions. If you don't mind, Bill, then we'll.
Yeah, I don't mind. That's fine.
Okay. So
I'm aware that Anne Marie and Diego said they
yes.
had.
Why don't we let them speak again?
Are you there? Yeah.
And we swore you in last time, so you continue to be under oath.
Okay, thank you. And I probably only have about 5 minutes. And so thank you for, allowing us to speak again. And I just wanted to make the point that we aren't against the hotel itself. In fact, we think that there are some advantages for the town. In addition, we appreciate the feedback from the Princeton business owners that we've heard this evening. And we do understand the revenue impact for them. However, they don't live next to the hotel and won't be impacted by the negative consequences of having this large building in their backyard. So I just wanted to break down the questions into 2 areas. The first one are the concerns around construction. And those questions relate, first of all, to noise. I think this was answered, but I just wanted to be completely clear. We were wondering what would the working hours be, weekdays and weekends. And I didn't take a note of it last time. So if that could be answered. And then I guess the second question that's also related is, if we are bothered by the excessive noise, how should we document it? We both work from home. We're on conference calls for much of the day, and the noise level will really substantially impact our ability to work. So, and then if construction is performed outside of regular working hours or on the weekend, it will also impact our leisure time. So really just wondering what those hours would be. Would you like me to ask all of the questions and then get answers, or did you prefer to answer them?
Well, can I, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, Jim Purcell, land use engineer, I wonder if I could just answer that first question. The ordinance states that construction can only take place between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekends. We do have in our comment memo from engineering and zoning a request that they change those hours to not start before 8 a.m. on any of the days. Whether or not the applicant has agreed to that is I don't think been testified to.
And if we are bothered by excessive noise, how do we appeal? Who do we go to?
You would call the town, and we would address it to either the health official or engineering or zoning.
Okay, thank you. So also related to construction is the vibration from the demolition, really, and as well as the construction. And we're wondering, should we be documenting the current state of our homes in the event of any structural damage due to the construction? And what would be the process for addressing any structural damage?
Let me say, a few years ago, when the garage behind Callaway Realty was taken down, that's obviously on the other side of Bank Street. And I think the university owned that garage. Did they ask a consultant to go through some of the homes that backed up on the garage to look at the existing conditions prior to the demolition taking place? I seem to remember something to that effect. I don't know if that was the case, but do you know if that happened?
Well, Steve, we're definitely going to do that here. We're going to do pre-construction surveys. As long as the property owner, allows us on the property, we'll do all of the testing,
Okay.
monitoring and surveying.
I think
yeah,
that
it's pretty standard.
Are you comfortable with that, Anne Marie?
Okay, yes, no, yes, that's
Okay.
good to know, thank you.
Good.
And then thirdly, also related to construction, and this has been brought up during the course of the evening, is the dust. And wondering how that dust will be measured and managed. And then if the hotel will pay for power washing and some air purifiers for the houses that are immediately, that are closest to the building, which ours is.
If I may again, in our memo to the zoning board, we addressed all of these issues and are making them as recommendations as conditions, that a detailed construction plan be provided to engineering that includes the responses about noise, vibration, dust, all of those things. They're documented in the memo to the board and suggested as being conditions on the approval.
Okay, good. Now, I guess you, Chris, the applicant hasn't testified haven't gone through those memos yet before the board.
No, but we find Jim's report. I just don't remember the 8 o'clock start, so I just want to make sure run that by to my construction guy. But every paragraph in Jim's report we agreed to, basically.
Well, I mean, I think at some point, don't you have to testify to that?
Yeah, we could certainly.
You review the memos, Karen, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
We can do that.
And
Yeah.
the power washing, is that something that would be paid for by the hotel?
I think, I don't know if I have my construction guy on, but we could talk about what we do related to dust if he's on. Let me see. Alex, are you there?
Alex Craig?
Yeah.
You have to bring him over. Claudia.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he's over there.
Okay.
Alex? Oh, not yet.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, no problem. So the question is, can you talk a little bit about what you do to address and monitor dust at the site during construction?
Yes, I believe, in some of the earlier conversations, right, we'll be required to establish dust monitors at the perimeter of the sites, as established in I believe it's the geotechnical report. And those dust monitors will obviously have a threshold of where, they'll set off alarms, to our team and to the testing agency on site as to whether we're exceeding our allowable limits as established either by state mandate or the city mandate. During demolition, there's a process of using misters, hoses, contained with soil erosion controls to avoid runoff. But that whole process has to be reviewed with the demolition sub with the stipulations that they've got to use dust control measures that are acceptable in the state, acceptable in the city, and provide acceptable dust controls. And we do it with misting stations, with hoses, with wet downs, and those type of tools. And similar to with vibration, it's a monitoring system that's set up to monitor and notify if we are exceeding the limits established, as part of the project specifications.
Thank you.
And the power washing after the demolition and construction?
I don't, I mean, that's hard to say. I don't know if there's I don't think we think because of the protections, there's going to be need to power wash, but I could say this, if we do dust your house, we will go out there and fix it, but I don't think that that's going to be, an issue. And I don't know if someone from Adventure Capital wants to weigh in on that, but
Sure, Christopher, can you hear me?
yeah. Okay, Tim, you haven't been sworn in yet, so let's just say your name for the record.
Timothy Ryan.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give this evening will be truthful? And just could you identify what your relationship is to the applicant?
My testimony will be truthful. And my name is Tim Ryan. I'm the Chief Investment Officer for Graduate Hotels and a Senior Vice President at Asian Capital Partners. Nice to meet everybody. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to chime in. Anne Marie, your question, I suppose, is a fair one, but what's difficult is it's built upon a kind of hypothesis or an assumption that there will be a dust issue. As Alex Craig, our construction expert, highlighted, we take anticipatory proven measures to prevent those issues. So that's not to say that an oversight or an accident could be possible. And to Chris's point, we're happy to go on the record and say that we pledge to be good neighbors and to make right something like that if it were to occur. But what we don't want to do is just sign up to be power washing everyone's house once a week when in fact we're maintaining a tidy job site, following state protocols and industry standards, and being respectful and precise and on top of our stuff, because that's inherent to how we operate and very important just as an aspect to everything we do. So I hope that's understood.
No, I mean, I think that's reasonable. It's just a matter of if there is an issue, then we would just want to make sure that it was correct.
We're not going anywhere, and you certainly know where to find us. And everything that we do in this company, in this business, is about celebrating and serving the community, which means maintaining not only an ongoing dialogue, but inviting you into our home. Our doors don't have locks. Come and see us anytime is really the core kind of message and ethos of how we aim to exist within the community. So of course, by all means, we'll be in contact.
So those are my questions related to construction, and then really just now related to once the building is actually up. And our main concern is really the mass of the building and the north facade, which is what will look directly into the back of our house at 19, and also our little back garden. So that north facade has windows. And we feel that, first of all, that's going to impact our privacy. I mean, in particular, you know, evenings, weekends, when it's only a tiny backyard, but we do appreciate being able to sit outside. And it will also look into our bedroom windows. And then the other impact is the sunlight, again, by the mass of the building. So the question really, as it relates there, is that we hope that the terrace design, and we like the terrace design that Tony presented, because we really feel that that will address the issues both of sunlight and of that mass of just a block of windows really looking straight into our backyard. And then it will also comply with the FAR regulations. So then just quickly to summarize the issue, the concerns that we have over and above those, the noise from the parking that's already been brought up, noise from the restaurant, the guests, noise possibly from the HVAC, the parking on Bank Street, and then just in general, a potential decrease in the value of our properties. So those aren't questions, those were just basically a summary of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else is out there, Eve?
No one who is signaling. And I'm just trying to see if I see any names of people who had asked to speak again.
Kreider.
Oh, right. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Who is that now?
Who is it?
Kreider, Chip Kreider.
Oh, okay. Thank
My
you.
wife, Jean, who's hiding.
Hi.
I actually have a longer presentation, but there's a couple things that are separate, and I can just hit those till we get the time.
Mr. Carter, did you testify at the last meeting?
The meeting before, but I'll swear in again if you
All
wish.
right, that's fine. Then do you swear from your testimony this evening will be truthful?
Yes, and
Thank
my
you.
wife better swear too.
Are you there, Mrs. Kreider? All right. Same up for you. Thank you. All right.
And Steve, just cut me off when you want to close it. I have a much longer presentation. I'm not going to even start it. Just a couple things I'll hit. First, I'd introduce myself. I have just become the person who has lived continuously on Bank Street for the longest time because one of our neighbors passed away several weeks ago. Been here for about 44 years, since the mid-70s. I came as a grad student. Like to say, in general, we support the idea of a hotel, but not this big. We really support a lot of the conclusions of the various boards and committees that the town has that has reviewed this so far. And I'll answer Steve's question about the vibration. Yes, there was significant vibration when the garage was torn down behind us. We did suffer significant damage. And then the contractor said, oh, we'll put in vibration monitors after the damage was done. And I'll just leave it at that as far as what happened to us. Now, the reason this happened is all the older houses on Bank Street are built on what's called rubble footings, which is where they just dig down so far and then start piling up rocks. There's no concrete footing or anything. And the soil here is a very stiff clay that never really dries out. And so vibrations from next to us might even travel across the street and do worse damage there than us. So this is something they really have to pay attention to. The rubble footings on all the houses except the double new one. And the other single thing I can cover is the so-called finger lot that protrudes onto Bank Street. Both my wife and I do not support removing the door. We support something else. And I'll tell you why. Personally, I view the auto court, the receiving court, as the most dangerous part of the hotel. Cars are going to be coming in, they will have traveled for several hundred miles. That's why they need a hotel. The engines are going to be hot. Car fires normally start under the hood or in the trunk or under the car usually. And if it's an electric car, it's a battery fire and it's in a concealed place, and those can get really hot. Yes, I know the area is going to be sprinklered, but sprinklers put out flames that the water can reach. They don't do too well putting out flames under a car until it burns through. So I think an access point into that area, besides the ramp and besides through the building, is critical, even though the fire code may not require it. So, but it doesn't have to be a door. It can be a breakable panel. You can put a trellis over it, let the green stuff grow up. Nobody will know it's there. It'll never be opened unless there's an emergency. And that solves the problem. But I think to have a solid brick wall there with no access to that space, which I consider to be dangerous, is a big mistake. And I can stop for now and I'll do the longer presentation at the next meeting, if that's all right with you.
Hang on one second, please. Well, we had originally scheduled this meeting till 11 o'clock. It is close to 11 now, a few minutes before 11. I guess I'm asking the board if we could go, if you want to cut it at 11, or do we want to try to take it? We're not going to finish this evening, obviously. And we might want to talk about, when the next meeting would be. So, well, what's the board's feeling in terms of going on for a bit longer? Anyone? Eve, Michael?
I think you stop here.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, it seems like we're not going to nearly be close to finishing, even if you went.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think we're anywhere close to finishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel badly for people that were waiting and wanting to testify. I hope that they can sympathize with the fact that it's kind of a rough slog for us. And we do want to hear what you have to say, and we think it's important. I can't speak for other people on the zoning board on this one. At 11 o'clock at night, I start to get a little bit fuzzy. I'm hitting that wall, and I'd rather be able to give what you say the respect to be able to listen to it with a clear mind. So I apologize if it's doesn't fit within the schedule, but I ask you to please be patient and compassionate.
Okay, well, no, that's fine. We could break it now. We have, as near as I can determine, we have Bill Gray's testimony. And Bill, again, please don't testify or question anything you questioned previously. And that'll sort of limit, cut it down as reasonably as possible. The Kreiders need to speak. Tony wants to make a closing statement. And I believe everybody else we've satisfied. Eve is saying yes.
I think that's right, unless, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. So
and then
probably a good time to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris,
Steve,
yes.
I noticed he wasn't on this meeting. Carlos Rodriguez, is he testifying for the neighbors? He was on the last meeting.
Yeah, I thought he was going to make a presentation. I did. Is Tony, are you still there? He's muted himself. So, well, I mean, if he's not here now and he shows up at the next meeting, we'll hear him. Yeah.
Steve, I'm here. No, Carlos won't be testifying.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll stop now. Next meeting. Now, Derek, do you want to speak to our agenda?
I mean, we could have a special meeting on the 17th or continue it to the regular meeting on the 24th. The special meeting would be if their board members are available and staff's available.
Yeah, we have our regular meeting on the 27th, but we're really booked on that one, right?
Right.
And so that takes care of January, so it's,
This is in February, I'm speaking, I'm sorry.
no, I know, but so we can't hear it at the the January 27th meeting. I guess we can, I mean, with the board members that are here, are you amenable to a special meeting in February?
Yes.
What's the date? The 17th?
17th.
I am.
Yes.
We would really appreciate that if we could do a special meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, I can do it. I'm fine with it. Harlan?
Muted.
Yes.
Harlan.
Sorry, I'm just looking it up right now, guys. Give me 1 minute. I'm just pulling it up. I can do it.
Okay, and then Bernice, are you available?
Yeah, I should be available.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Yes, okay, and so how many do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nick Valvanis.
I can do the 17th. Yeah.
Jim?
So that's 6,
6.
I can do it.
7.
7. All right, so we'll have a meeting, we'll have a special meeting on February 17th at 7:30.
I had thought, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just wanting clarification. There was a previous discussion, I thought last time that was looking at the 3rd of February as a backup date. Is that,
Unfortunately, staff has another meeting that night. We have one the 1st, the 3rd, and the 4th, so that week's
Wait
booked.
a second.
Yeah, I think Sprab went on that night, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right, there's a possibility, I just realized too, there's a possibility that I may not be available on the 17th. And I don't know that yet, so I guess the 17th is as good a date as any.
well, the 10th is the week before.
I'm sorry?
The 10th is also, is a Wednesday too.
We have a Sprab meeting that night.
Yeah. Let's leave it at the 17th. I'll deal with it.
So I mean, is it a possibility to look at other dates, or are they all, I mean, instead of a Wednesday?
Other nights.
Or we just look at Wednesdays?
Well, if we can't do the 3rd, the 10th, or the 17th, that leaves our regular meeting on the 27th.
He means other nights of the week.
Yeah, other
Oh,
nights
other
of the
nights
week,
of the week,
like
yeah.
a Tuesday or Thursday. If that's only if you have a conflict, Steve. I just was concerned if you're not going to be there on the 17th.
Yeah, I know. And I'd like to be there. I just don't know for sure yet, quite frankly. And I don't know, but I know it's, if it's going to happen in February, it's going to happen. I have another hearing on the 17th that I'm not positive is going to happen, so I can't really say for sure. But if we can choose another night, that would be much better for me.
Is like the 18th available, or the 16th, or?
Planning board is on the 18th. We have to go to that. We do the 11th.
The 11th?
The 11th.
The 11th works for me.
I could do that.
What day of the week is the 11th? I'm sorry.
Thursday.
Thursday? Okay, that works.
Michael, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Yes.
Harlan? Jim?
I've got something, but I can try and get out of it.
Okay, thank you. Bernice?
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay, so I think we're,
Michael?
George?
yeah, Michael said yes.
Oh,
I'm okay.
That doesn't work for me,
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
George, you okay with that?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
how many do we have? Because I heard Nick, I thought he said he couldn't make it, so.
Oh,
we have a few people who we don't know because they're not here about either one, so.
Well, we got to deal with who's here. I mean, because I
Right.
have to, listen to the hearing. So let's,
3, 4, 5. I think we have 6. Myself, Eve, Michael, George, Harlan.
we could do it the 16th as opposed to the 17th. I mean, we need 7 people. I mean, that's not my call, it's the applicant's call, but.
Okay, well, I could do the 16th also.
So could I.
I can do the 16th.
Michael, Floyd?
I'm looking.
Okay.
Second. Yeah, I can do it.
Harlan?
I'm sorry, which day are we looking at now? I was trying to
Sorry,
get the other one.
16th,
Tuesday,
February
16th.
16th, it's Tuesday.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Okay.
George
Yes, I can do it. Yes.
and Bernice?
Yeah, the other dates are better, but I should be able to make the 16th.
What happened to the 11th? Was that a problem or?
Somebody couldn't make it on the.
Yeah,
couldn't make it?
Nick couldn't make it.
Okay, well,
So how many do we
No.
have then for the 16th?
Well, Harlan is not available on the 16th.
it's not available.
So how many do we have? We're not.
We're
and we
back
don't-
to 6.
We're back to 6. We don't know about Steve Schreiber. And we don't know about Jim.
Yeah.
Maybe we can't decide tonight.
Well,
We have
I
to
think-
decide tonight?
No, we have to, well, we don't have to, but then the applicant will have to renotice. If it's announced tonight that it's
see.
carried to a date certain, then they won't have to renotice. That may not be an issue for them if they want to give the board, a couple days to figure out scheduling, but that would be up to the applicant to.
We also need an extension from the applicant.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll need I guess the period ends the 31st of January. We're definitely gonna need an extension.
Yep. Did we look at the 9th as a possibility?
Yeah, I thought that Derek had said that there was planning board on the 9th.
No, I think, no, we have a SPRAB on the 10th. The 9th is open for myself. I don't know if Jim and Michael are available.
I'm good for the 9th.
9th?
Yeah.
I'm fine with the 9th. That works for me.
I don't seem to have any plans. Yes, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I can
I'm
do the
okay
9th.
for the 9th.
Who is that?
That was Michael Laplace. I'm okay with the 9th.
Thanks, Michael. And how about Bernice?
Yeah, the 9th is okay.
George Stein?
I'm okay with the 9th.
Nick Valvanus?
Yep, 9th is good.
I'm missing somebody. Harlan, is the 9th work?
Yeah, okay, Tuesday nights are bad for me.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, hold on.
I did hear back from my person. I can reschedule the 11th. So I'm available on the 11th if that was the holdout.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got the issue on the 11th.
Oh, you've got one too. Okay, sorry, Nick. All right.
What date are we talking about now?
We were talking about the 9th.
Yeah, the 9th. I know it works for me, so.
But Harlan's has a conflict that night.
Oh.
Right.
And we would
17th.
not do Mondays because of council or,
Council's not on Monday anymore.
We
It
could.
would depend on which Monday for me, because I
Council,
haven't.
council is
been
Tuesday
meeting
now.
on
oh, it
Monday.
is. Oh, how did I miss that?
They just changed it.
Karen, are you available the 8th?
When?
February, Monday, the 8th, I believe.
Hold on. Actually, yes, that could work. Yeah.
How about you, Steve?
It works for me.
Eve,
Yes,
Michael,
Yes,
Nick,
Yep.
Bernice,
Yeah.
Harlan,
Yes.
and George?
Yes.
Eureka.
I think we
We got a
have.
winner. Thank you.
All right, so it'll be Monday, February 8th at 7:30.
And we need an extension.
We'll
Yeah.
need an extension.
Yeah, we'll provide an extension to the end of the month,
Thank you.
end of February. Just because my professionals are on, does anyone know of a conflict that they have in case people have questions for you for the Monday, the 8th?
No.
Okay, good. So, Mr. Chair, I think that works for us as well.
Okay, and who's ever left in the audience, that will continue on the 8th, and we'll start again with the remaining questioners from the public.
And for purposes of clarity, it will be on February 8th at 7:30. And the Zoom link and information to attend will be provided on the municipal website on the agenda page, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that is on Monday.
And that is a Monday.
Monday. And I also like the court reporter, wherever she is, to also put that on her schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, one and all, and the meeting is adjourned, and we'll see everybody, I hope, on February 8th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
good,
You're welcome.
good meeting.
Thank you.